In her past life, Akari Sato married Haruto Tanaka all alone. Her only wish was to build a happy family. However, Haruto Tanaka's heart always belonged to her cousin, Yui Sato. Akari became the subject of ridicule, living her entire life in sorrow. Upon her rebirth, her cousin Yui cried and insisted on marrying Haruto Tanaka, who was destined to become the wealthiest man. With their fates swapped, Akari Sato chose Minato Kobayashi, who had passed away early in her previous life, as her husband. After marriage, Minato treated her with respect and doting affection, and Akari believed her dream had finally come true. Little did she know, she had still chosen the wrong person. December 1978, at the military family housing complex in Amagasaki City, Akari Sato, carrying a grocery basket, was about to pull out her keys at her doorstep when she suddenly heard voices from inside her house. "Minato, didn't you used to like Yui Sato? How did you end up marrying Akari Sato?" She instinctively froze. Inside, Minato Kobayashi's voice was low. Yui has her heart set on Haruto Tanaka, but Akari Sato was betrothed to Haruto Tanaka. If Akari had made a fuss, how would people have viewed Yui? "It's okay for me to suffer a little, as long as I can protect Yui's marriage." His words struck Akari like thunder, drowning out all other sounds. In the depths of winter, the biting wind pierced her, and her heart ached with it was Yui Sato again. In her past life, the Sato family had arranged marriages with the Kobayashi and Tanaka families. Yui Sato chose Minato Kobayashi, who had a promising future. Akari Sato was left to marry the impoverished Haruto Tanaka. She devoted herself to her family, allowing Haruto Tanaka to focus on his business and eventually become a tycoon. However, after Minato Kobayashi's unexpected early death, Akari only then learned that Haruto Tanaka had always been in love with her cousin, Yui Sato. Those two were inextricably intertwined. Akari Sato became an outcast and a laughingstock in everyone's eyes, ultimately passing away alone in a cold hospital room. Before her death, she prayed that in her next life, she would never encounter those two again. Reborn into this life, Yui Sato made a big fuss and married Haruto Tanaka. Akari Sato understood that Yui Sato had also been reborn. Quietly, Akari married Minato Kobayashi. On their wedding night, Minato held her hand, his eyes filled with tenderness. "Akari, I know you suffered a lot in the Sato family. Now you are part of the Kobayashi family. Wife, I will treat you well, believe me." Since her parents passed away, no one had ever looked at Akari Sato with such unwavering concern and affection. Because of these two sentences, she held him deep in her heart. After their marriage, Minato Kobayashi treated her with utmost care, a stark contrast to Haruto Tanaka's coldness in her past life. Akari Sato had always thought that her dying wish had come true, and that was why she had Minato Kobayashi in this life. She was wronged. It turned out that Minato Kobayashi also loved Yui Sato. She wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, suppressed the tremor in her heart, and pushed open the door. Minato Kobayashi and his friend, Ren Suzuki, turned their heads simultaneously, their faces filled with surprise. Minato asked nervously, "Akari, when did you get back?" She smiled faintly. "Just got back. Why?" Minato observed her expression, let out a sigh of relief, and took the grocery basket. "Nothing. Ren, you can go now. I need to cook for my wife." He touched Akari Sato's hand. "It's so cold, hurry and wash your face and hands with warm water." Akari Sato felt a complex mix of emotions. Just now he said he didn't love her, but now he was showering her with care. She suppressed the heartache, smiled self-deprecatingly, and turned towards the bathroom. After washing her face, Akari Sato looked up. Her eyes in the mirror were red. Reborn into this life, this was an opportunity given to her by fate. Did she really want to continue living this way? She spent a sleepless night. Early the next morning, Akari Sato walked into the director's office. "Director, didn't you tell me a week ago that the hospital was sending someone to a hospital in Tokyo for advanced training?" "I've made up my mind, I'll go." The old director was surprised. "Are you sure? You won't be able to come back for several years once you go." Akari Sato nodded without hesitation. "Learning more knowledge and techniques will allow me to better serve the people." The old director took out an application form from a stack of documents nearby and handed it to her. Akari Sato held the application form, and seeing the words "return date undetermined" on it, her eyes inexplicably welled up. In her previous life, she also had such an opportunity to study in Tokyo, but she gave it up to take care of Haruto Tanaka. In this life, The old director had also mentioned going to Tokyo, but at that time she only wanted to stay by Minato Kobayashi's side and refused. Now she had thought it through. Since she couldn't have a happy family in either life, she would become the best surgeon and save countless families. Her gaze gradually hardened. Akari Sato pulled out the fountain pen from the chest pocket of her white coat and solemnly signed her name on the application form. Akari Sato. This time, she would live for herself. After completing the application form, Akari Sato handed it to the old director. The old director took it, his face showing satisfaction. You have over a month to prepare thoroughly. Akari Sato nodded. Thank you for the reminder, director. She paused, then continued. But could this matter be kept confidential for now? I'm worried about unforeseen circumstances. Yui Sato had held a prejudice against her since childhood, always snatching her belongings, and if she couldn't have them, she would destroy them. The old director chuckled gently. I understand. Commander Kobayashi and you are deeply in love, he would surely be reluctant for you to leave. Akari Sato forced a smile, saying nothing more. Leaving the director's office, she encountered two nurses head-on. Dr. Sato, Commander Kobayashi is here to see you at the hospital again. It's truly enviable. Commander Kobayashi makes time to have meals with you even when he's busy. My husband doesn't have that kind of thoughtfulness. Don't be envious. A good man like him is rare. Dr. Sato is truly blessed. The two nurses joked, one after another. Akari Sato's heart, however, was filled with a bitter taste, no longer the shyness and sweetness of days gone by. Had she not accidentally overheard Minato Kobayashi's conversation with Ren Suzuki yesterday, she might still be in the dark. At this moment, she only felt as if her heart was being cut, in unbearable pain. Minato Kobayashi indeed cared for her deeply, but not out of love, but out of fear that she would jeopardize Yui Sato's happiness. With heavy steps, Akari Sato still returned to her consulting room. Where have you been? I've been waiting for you for a long time. Minato Kobayashi came forward and took her hand. She lowered her head and replied, I just reported on a few patients to the director. Minato Kobayashi didn't suspect anything. He took out an aluminum lunchbox from a cloth bag nearby and opened it. The cloth bag was specially customized by him, filled with cotton to keep the food warm, and the dishes in the lunchbox were still steaming. Inside the lunchbox were soft white bread rolls, scrambled eggs, and meat sauce, all rare delicacies. If it were in the past, Akari Sato would have feigned scolding him for being wasteful, then sweetly enjoyed the meal, but now, she looked at the delicious food and had no appetite. You eat, I'm not hungry. Minato Kobayashi was taken aback, and asked with concern, what's wrong? Are you too tired? As he spoke, he poured her a cup of hot water and placed the enamel mug beside her hand. Eat something, even if it's a little. I know your work is important, but your health is paramount. I'd be heartbroken if you got sick. Akari Sato gazed at him, trying to find traces of falsehood in his eyes. However, Minato Kobayashi's eyes only held genuine worry and affection. Akari Sato almost doubted if the words she heard yesterday were just a nightmare. Just as she was about to speak, Yui Sato's clear voice suddenly came from outside the door. Akari, big sister is here to see you. Minato Kobayashi's eyes flickered instantly, and he subconsciously looked towards the door. Immediately after, Yui Sato appeared at the doorway. She was wearing a floral padded jacket, which not only didn't make her look bulky but also made her appear more charming and cute. Akari Sato recognized the fabric of the padded jacket. It was issued by Minato Kobayashi's military unit to military families, and she had once loved it very much, but the next day, the fabric disappeared, and Minato Kobayashi said he had given it away. Thinking of this, Akari Sato couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness. Before she could speak, Minato Kobayashi had already said, Cousin, please come in quickly. Have you eaten? In the past, Akari Sato would have only thought that Minato Kobayashi's action was out of love for her and respect for her family. Now she finally understood that Minato Kobayashi's enthusiasm for Yui Sato was simply because she was Yui Sato. In fact, if she had observed carefully, she would have noticed all of this earlier. Every gift Minato Kobayashi prepared for her, he would also prepare one for Yui Sato. He once explained, if she has it, she won't compete with you anymore. At that time, she was immersed in the happiness of love and deliberately ignored these details. Akari Sato self-deprecatingly tugged at the corner of her mouth. Yui Sato smiled and shook her head. I've already eaten. Haruto is back today, and he wants to invite you home for dinner. Brother-in-law, you should come too. Akari Sato was about to refuse, but Minato Kobayashi had already agreed. Akari and I will come tonight. Yui Sato smiled softly, then I'll see you tonight. Before leaving, she looked down at her clothes and said, "Oh, by the way, thank you, brother-in-law, for the fabric you sent earlier. I really like it." Minato Kobayashi paused, his voice soft. "Glad you like it." Minato Kobayashi's gaze remained fixed on the doorway, and it wasn't until Yui Sato's figure disappeared that he turned to look at Akari beside him. "Akari, Haruto Tanaka is engaging in some speculative business outside, and your cousin is working hard at home alone, so I thought of sending some things over." Akari Sato's heart, however, felt heavy. She really wanted to ask, if you were so reluctant, why didn't you fight for her when Yui Sato was crying and insisting on marrying Haruto Tanaka? But the words turned into, "I don't want to go tonight, you go alone." Minato Kobayashi frowned. "Why? Are you still not over Haruto Tanaka?" If it were before, Akari Sato would have thought he was jealous, but now she clearly heard a cautious coldness in his voice. A sharp pain pierced Akari Sato's heart, her throat constricted, and she retorted, "What if I am?" Minato Kobayashi was momentarily speechless, then anger surged. "It's true that you should have married Haruto Tanaka back then, but after all these years, haven't I treated you well?" Someone was already looking over from the consulting room door. Akari Sato turned her head and closed her eyes. "You should go now, I'm busy." Minato Kobayashi looked at her for a long time, his brow twitching, then turned and left without saying anything. Akari Sato lowered her head, not looking at his retreating back, but her hands, as she tidied things, were trembling slightly. "It's okay. In a month, she will leave. By then, she will no longer see these three people who had almost ruined both of her lives." At closing time, Akari Sato encountered Minato Kobayashi again at the hospital entrance. Minato walked up to her, sighing softly, "Akari, I was too harsh today. I apologize. You're my wife, and I don't want you still thinking about someone else. If you don't want to go, then we won't go." Akari Sato looked at his sincere expression, but her heart felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, making it difficult to breathe. Minato Kobayashi's love for Yui Sato was so deep that he could apologize with such humility. Was he truly afraid that she would disrupt Yui Sato's marriage? She was about to leave and didn't want to cause any more trouble. She lowered her head, her voice tired. "I don't want to go back because every time they call me back, they just want my salary." In her previous life, after Minato Kobayashi's early death, Yui Sato became a widow, and all of Akari's allowance went to Yui Sato. Because of this, she was greatly disdained by her in laws. In this life, Haruto Tanaka had not yet succeeded, and their life was difficult. So her salary still had to subsidize Yui Sato. Akari Sato felt ridiculous, as if her entire life was lived for Yui Sato. However, her words made Minato Kobayashi frown. "Akari, the Sato family raised you, and you should repay them. Your cousin gave you the opportunity to go to university, so it's only right that you give her your salary." A hint of sarcasm flashed in Akari Sato's eyes. Parental benevolence. When her parents had an accident, her uncle's family stole their work quota, yet she lived a life of hunger and cold in her uncle's home. After graduating from elementary school, she was forced to drop out and could only teach herself using Yui Sato's discarded textbooks. Later, she met a demoted doctor, learned medical skills, and secretly applied for a university spot. However, Yui Sato claimed that she had given up her spot. Akari tried to explain many times, but no one believed her. Even Minato Kobayashi, who seemed to obey her, sided with Yui Sato without hesitation. She no longer wanted to say more. Minato Kobayashi, however, seemed to assume her agreement and gently held her hand. "It's okay, wife. Give it to them. My allowance is enough to support you." His hand was warm and strong, but Akari Sato felt a chill run through her heart. Even that word, wife, made her feel like a clown. Upon arriving at the Sato family home, when Haruto Tanaka saw Akari Sato, a trace of unnaturalness flashed in his eyes. Although nothing had happened between them, they had been engaged. He quickly returned to normal and invited them to eat. Minato Kobayashi looked around and asked, "Where's Kanta?" Yui Sato replied, "He got tired from playing this afternoon and is already asleep." Kanta was Haruto Tanaka and Yui Sato's 2-year-old son. Minato Kobayashi seemed a little disappointed. Akari Sato felt a pang of sadness. She, too, had once wanted a child with Minato Kobayashi, but he always used the excuse of wanting a life as a couple. Yet now he was so concerned about Yui Soto's child. After dinner, before Akari Sato could speak, Minato Kobayashi slipped an envelope into her hand. She felt the thick envelope. It was much thicker than her allowance, so he must have secretly added more. Akari Sato bit her lip and handed the envelope to Yui Soto. Yui Soto, beaming, held her hand and saw her to the door. On the way, Yui Soto confidently said, "Akari, when your brother-in-law makes a lot of money, he definitely won't treat you unfairly." Akari Soto's heart skipped a beat. In her previous life, after policies were relaxed, Haruto Tanaka seized the opportunity and gradually became the wealthiest man. And Minato Kobayashi had died unexpectedly this very year. Thinking of this, she suddenly turned to look at Minato Kobayashi behind her. Their eyes met, and Minato Kobayashi subconsciously curved his lips. "Wife, what's wrong?" Akari Soto's eyelashes trembled. Even though she had decided to leave, she didn't want anything to happen to Minato Kobayashi. As she was distracted, she heard Minato Kobayashi shout from behind, "Watch out." Akari Sato was stunned for a moment, then saw a Nihachi bicycle heading straight for her and Yui Soto. Akari Sato was momentarily blank, then saw Minato Kobayashi rush forward in a flash, pulling Yui Soto into his arms, and she watched helplessly as the bicycle crashed into her, sending her and the bike crashing heavily to the ground. The sharp pain of her elbow hitting the ground momentarily blanked Akari Soto's mind. She clearly saw Minato Kobayashi's actions. He could have protected Yui Soto and reached out to help her at the same time, allowing both of them to be safe. But he didn't. Akari Sato lay on the ground, snowflakes falling into her eyes, moistening them and chilling her heart. It wasn't until he saw the blood that Minato Kobayashi's heart tightened, finally realizing what had happened. He hastily let go of Yui Soto and ran to Akari Sato. "Wife, are you okay?" His eyes filled with panic as he helped Akari Sato up and checked her over. Apart from a scraped hand, she was fine. Minato Kobayashi sighed in relief. "Fortunately, you're all right." Akari Sato blinked her aching eyes. Was she really all right? Then why did her heart hurt so much? She lowered her head, looking at the tear in her padded jacket where it had scraped against the ground, the white cotton fluttering in the cold wind. Just like her wounded heart, the cold wind howled through it. A kind passerby, seeing the situation, quickly called the police. Akari Sato sat by the stove in the police station lobby, her limbs gradually regaining warmth. A female police officer walked over with a file. "That person hit you while drunk, but don't worry, we won't ignore this matter." She noticed Akari Sato's arm. "Oh dear, it's still bleeding. Let me treat your wound." Akari Sato lowered her head and thanked her. "Thank you, officer. It's our duty to serve the people," the female officer said, then turned to find a first aid kit in the next room. Minato Kobayashi stood nearby, his expression awkward. "Akari, I'm sorry, I didn't mean not to save you just now. Your cousin isn't in good health. If she had been hit, it could have been very serious. As a soldier, I should prioritize helping the weaker person." Akari Sato looked at her injured hand and let out a cold laugh. Yui Soto had been pampered since childhood and was not physically weak. On the contrary, Akari had always been malnourished and had to do household chores, so her body was never strong. It wasn't until she became a surgeon that she developed her current healthy physique. Minato Kobayashi seemed not to notice her emotions. "Fortunately, nothing serious happened to you." Akari Sato interrupted him. "Minato Kobayashi, do you know how important a hand is to a surgeon?" Minato Kobayashi looked at her red eyes, his heart a little flustered. "I know, I will take good care of you and help you recover quickly." His words suddenly stopped. Akari Sato looked up, following his gaze, and saw Haruto Tanaka entering with his 2-year-old son, Kanta Tanaka. They walked directly towards Yui Soto. "Kanta woke up and kept looking for you. How could you be so careless?" Haruto Tanaka asked Yui Soto with concern, while Kanta called out "Mama" by her leg. Akari Sato looked at Minato Kobayashi. He was staring blankly at the family of 3, the ordinary happiness she sought in both her lives, yet twice she had chosen the wrong person. The pain from her wound seemed to spread to her heart, and Akari Sato's eyes reddened slightly. The female officer applied medicine to her, her movements much gentler. After finishing, she even gave Akari a milk candy. "Eat something sweet, and it won't hurt as much." Akari Sato peeled open the candy wrapper, and the bitterness in her heart lessened slightly. By the time they finished the police report and returned to the family housing complex, It was late at night. Akari Sato felt physically and mentally exhausted. She lay down on the bed and soon drifted into a light sleep. However, in her hazy state, she felt the bed sink, followed by an arm wrapping around her. Then, a burning hand slipped under her clothes, wandering freely. Akari Sato instantly woke up, opening her eyes to see Minato Kobayashi's face close by. Her lips felt a moist touch. Her mind went blank. Then she heard him say in a husky voice beside her ear, "Wife, let's have a child too." Akari Sato stiffened for a moment. "Why? Didn't you say you wanted to enjoy life as a couple before?" Minato Kobayashi didn't answer, a suppressed gasp in his throat. Akari Sato thought of Minato Kobayashi's gaze at Kanta today. Had the happiness of that family of three stimulated him? Noticing the increasingly unrestrained movements of the person on top of her, she softly said, "My wound hurts." Minato Kobayashi paused. "Okay, when your wound heals, we'll have plenty of time." The wall clock chimed, announcing midnight. Akari Sato's tears fell silently. 29 more days. Minato Kobayashi, we don't have time, and we won't have a child. In the early morning, when Akari Sato woke up, Minato Kobayashi had already prepared breakfast. He said softly, "Akari, wake up, come and have breakfast. I've already asked for leave for you at the hospital this morning. You should rest well at home today." Akari Sato sat down and took a spoonful of porridge. The porridge was at a comfortable temperature, warm but not scalding. Indeed, as long as it didn't involve Yui Sato, Minato Kobayashi was an impeccable husband. After settling Akari Sato, Minato Kobayashi put on his military coat as usual, ready to leave. Before he left, he smiled brightly. "I got a meat ration ticket. I'll come back tonight and make you some soup." Akari Sato couldn't help but call out to him, "Minato?" Her face was slightly pale, and thinking of yesterday's bicycle accident, her anxiety grew even stronger. In her previous life, Minato Kobayashi seemed to have gotten into an accident around these days. She had originally wanted to attend the funeral, but Haruto Tanaka persuaded her not to, saying that Yui Sato, in her grief, would surely not want to see her later. She learned that Haruto Tanaka had been accompanying Yui Sato during that time, recalling all the absurdities of her past life. Akari Sato couldn't help but wonder who was more pathetic, herself or the prematurely deceased Minato Kobayashi. She looked up at Minato Kobayashi. Minato Kobayashi turned his head, and seeing her pale face, his heart tightened. "What's wrong?" Akari Sato wanted to warn him, but she didn't know how to speak. She opened her mouth, but only asked, "Are there any missions for the unit recently?" Minato Kobayashi smiled and shook his head. "No, don't worry, I'll be back early to accompany you." Akari Sato pursed her lips. "I had a nightmare last night, dreaming that something happened to you. You said that health is the foundation of everything. You must be careful." Minato Kobayashi frowned, walked to her side, and held her cold fingers. "Don't worry, dreams and reality are opposites. Nothing will happen to me." Akari Sato wanted to say that it wasn't a dream, but something that was about to happen, but she ultimately didn't say it. She could only softly say, "Come back early." Minato Kobayashi smiled and agreed. He then pinched her cheek again. "Your padded jacket got torn yesterday. I'll try to get some fabric coupons and cotton tickets to make you a new one. Don't worry, I'll be safe and sound." After comforting her, he turned and left. Akari Sato was alone, her mind in a chaotic mess. Fortunately, by evening, Minato Kobayashi returned home on time. And the following days, Akari Sato returned to work at the hospital. Every day before work, she would remind Minato Kobayashi to be careful, and even gave him the good luck charm her mother had left her. Although Minato Kobayashi didn't understand her worries, he would pick her up from work on time every day, whether at the hospital or the military unit. They seemed to have become an enviable couple to everyone. Sometimes, Akari Sato wondered if Minato Kobayashi, in the process of acting, had unknowingly developed genuine feelings. Days passed, and December was nearing its end. Only 20 days remained until Akari Sato's departure. This day, Akari Sato came out after completing a surgery. It was already dark, but Minato Kobayashi had not appeared. A strong sense of unease surged within Akari Sato. She tried her best to comfort herself, thinking he might have had something to do and gone home early. However, when she returned to the family housing complex, the house was empty. Just then, Mrs. Tanaka passed by, and Akari anxiously asked, "Mrs. Tanaka, has your husband returned?" Mrs. Tanaka glanced at the empty room. "Oh? Commander Kobayashi isn't back yet. My husband said he went to the city to buy tickets for a kabuki play. He said he was going to pick you up to see the show. Don't you like watching kabuki? Akari Sato was stunned. It wasn't her who liked kabuki, but Yui Sato. The warmth in her heart instantly cooled, and Akari Sato felt like a joke. She smiled bitterly and shook her head, about to turn around and go home, when suddenly someone rushed in frantically. Akari, quick! Go to the hospital. Commander Kobayashi had an accident. Akari Sato's mind buzzed, as if she was hearing the news of death from her previous life again. Her body swayed, but thankfully Mrs. Tanaka quickly steadied her, anxiously asking the person, "My goodness, what exactly happened?" The person gasped, "Commander Kobayashi encountered child traffickers on the road. They had knives." Akari Sato steadied herself and rushed to the hospital. Upon arriving at the hospital, she saw Minato Kobayashi lying on the hospital bed, covered in blood. The old director stood by, saying, "Dr. Sato, although you're the best surgeon in our hospital, he's your husband, so perhaps wait for Dr. Hayashi to come." Before he could finish, Akari Sato interrupted him, "I'll do it. Prepare for surgery." The surrounding medical staff were stunned. Akari Sato was terrifyingly calm. Before him, "I am first and foremost a doctor." Entering the operating room, seeing the unconscious Minato Kobayashi, her heart ached terribly, but her hands were as steady as a rock. The surgery finally concluded at dawn. The head nurse breathed a sigh of relief. "We finally pulled him back from the brink of death." Sweat mixed with exhaustion, and Akari Sato fainted. When she woke up again, she was in a hospital room, with Mrs. Tanaka by her bedside. Her first question was, "Mrs. Tanaka, how is Minato?" Mrs. Tanaka's expression was complex as she handed her a cup of hot water. "He's fine, resting in the next room. You've worked hard too, take care of yourself first." Akari Sato's heart tightened, wanting to see him. Disregarding all objections, she got out of bed and walked towards the next room. Through the window on the door, she saw the scene inside, and her body instantly stiffened. The someone taking care of him Mrs. Tanaka mentioned was none other than Yui Sato. Yui Sato said tearfully, "Minato, if it weren't for you, I might have been taken by those traffickers. You're so badly hurt because of me. I really don't know how to thank you." Minato Kobayashi, his face pale, said, "Cousin, don't say that. Protecting you is my duty." The situation yesterday was urgent. Akari Sato hadn't asked for details. Now she knew that Minato Kobayashi was injured while saving Yui Sato. Perhaps it was the same in the previous life, which was why Yui Sato never mentioned that she had caused her husband's death. Akari Sato smiled self-deprecatingly, then saw Minato Kobayashi take out 2 tickets. "These are the tickets you asked me to buy. Thankfully, I still have them." Even at a moment like this, he still remembered Yui Sato's request. Heart aching, Akari Sato turned and left, each step feeling incredibly heavy. Returning to her ward's doorway, she met the director. "Dr. Akari, you're awake? Come to my office for a moment." In the director's office, the old director sighed, "Dr. Akari, there's a change regarding Tokyo." Akari Sato's heart sank. "Director, was the application not approved?" The director shook his head. "No, it's about an earlier departure, in 1 week. Given your husband's current condition, I'm worried you might have concerns." Akari Sato looked towards Minato Kobayashi's hospital room. The old director regretfully said, "If you can't go, it's all right." Later on, Akari Sato interrupted him, "I have no concerns. I will depart on time." The old director was surprised. "Are you sure? This trip could be for several years, or even a lifetime." Akari Sato smiled bitterly, her voice firm, "I'm sure." She had already saved Minato Kobayashi. That accounted for his care. From now on, they owed each other nothing. Akari Sato returned to her consulting room, her gaze falling once again on the calendar. The red circle marking her departure date had a diagonal line drawn through it. Her gaze shifted to another date, where a small star marked January 1st. 3 years ago on that day, she and Minato Kobayashi received their marriage certificate. She paused, then took out a piece of paper from the drawer and began to write. Each stroke formed the characters for divorce application. Akari Sato stared at the words. Her eyes welling up with tears, she blinked, suppressing the tears, and continued to write, smoothly and firmly. After completing the application, she tucked it into her files and headed towards Minato Kobayashi's room. Yui Sato was still in the room. When Minato Kobayashi saw Akari Sato, His smile froze for a moment. Akari, you're here? Akari Sato paused, her hand holding the document. Was she coming at the wrong time, interrupting their private moment? She tightly gripped the document, pretending everything was normal. Cousin is here too. Why are your eyes red? Minato Kobayashi's eyes showed a hint of discomfort. Yui Sato took Akari Sato's hand. I'm so sorry, Akari. It's all because of me that Minato got hurt. If you're busy, I can take care of him. Akari Sato pulled her hand away. Minato is a hero. Even if I'm busy, the military will send someone to take care of him. Cousin, you have a family and children. It wouldn't sound good if news of your past with Minato got out. Yui Sato's attitude changed, perhaps because Minato Kobayashi still had value. Akari Sato didn't want to dwell on it, but before leaving, she didn't want to humble herself anymore. Yui Sato's smile was a little strained. You're right. Minato Kobayashi's face changed. He wanted to speak but held back. Akari Sato ignored their expressions and inquired about his condition. Any other discomfort? Has the wound reopened? Minato Kobayashi's words were cut short. He also felt Akari Sato's attitude was somewhat unusual, but her questions were reasonable. He could only answer truthfully. Yui Sato looked even more wronged, and said reluctantly, then I'll leave first. She got up and left directly. Minato Kobayashi instinctively wanted to keep her, but Akari Sato had already recorded his condition and handed him the clipboard. She pointed, sign here. On the clipboard was the divorce report, cleverly folded by her. Minato Kobayashi's attention was on the departing Yui Sato, and he signed without noticing. Looking at the signed report, Akari Sato felt a pang of sadness. She knew that as long as Yui Sato was there, she could easily get Minato Kobayashi to sign. She had indeed done it, but her heart felt incredibly heavy. At this moment, Minato Kobayashi finally spoke. Akari, my cousin is family. What you just said was too hurtful. Akari Sato suppressed the bitterness in her throat and looked at him. Minato Kobayashi, you asked me if I had forgotten Haruto Tanaka. Now I'm telling you, I have. What about you? Have you forgotten Yui Sato? When you were risking your life for her, did you consider what I, as your wife, should do? She wasn't Yui Sato. With Haruto Tanaka as a fallback, Minato Kobayashi was speechless, and there was a long silence. Akari Sato smiled. Without waiting for his response, she turned and left. They had been married for 3 years, and this was the first time Minato Kobayashi hadn't followed her. As she reached the corner of the staircase, she found Yui Sato waiting for her. Yui Sato's smile was cold and hardened, completely devoid of her earlier gentle and fragile demeanor. Akari Sato, you're also reborn, aren't you? Akari Sato stood there, coldly retorted, I don't know what you're talking about. Yui Sato looked at Akari Sato, who showed no surprise and even had a calm expression. She smiled, you really are reborn. No wonder Minato didn't die this life. But Akari Sato, let me tell you, even if you saved Minato Kobayashi, it's useless. Whether it was in the last life or this life, the person Minato and Haruto love is only me. You will always be trampled under my feet. Akari Sato lowered her eyes and smiled, a self-deprecating and also relieved smile. She no longer bothered to pretend, leaving only one sentence before she walked away. I know. It's all yours. She no longer longed to pin her happiness on others. From now on, she would love herself. Minato Kobayashi needed to rest in the hospital for several days, while Akari Sato returned home alone. As soon as she entered the door, she began to pack up all the items Minato Kobayashi had given her over the past 3 years. The fashionable clothes brought back from Tokyo, the carefully customized necklaces, and the imported Soviet watches that could be given away were distributed to the aunts in the complex. Those that couldn't be given away were burned to ashes. On the night of December 27th, only 5 days remained until her departure. Akari Sato lit a brazier on the balcony and threw her wedding photo with Minato Kobayashi into the flames. The photo turned to ashes in the firelight, and her heart felt as if it had been reborn with the flames. The next morning, Akari Sato arrived at the hospital. As soon as she entered her office, she saw a middle-aged female doctor. Dr. Sato, I'm Fumiko Suzuki. Everyone calls me Sister Suzuki. The director asked me to take over your work and patients. Akari Sato expressed her gratitude. Sister Suzuki, thank you for your trouble. Sister Suzuki waved her hand and smiled. Don't mention it. If I didn't have a family and children, I'd also want to venture out and make my own way. After the patient files were transferred, seeing that Sister Suzuki was going to do rounds, Akari Sato reminded her, "Sister Suzuki, when you get to my husband in room 702, please don't mention that I'm leaving, so he doesn't feel uncomfortable." Sister Suzuki nodded. "I understand. Your deep affection for each other is evident to the entire hospital. Commander Kobayashi is a good man. He doesn't force you to have children and even supports you in pursuing your dreams." Akari Sato smiled, non-committally. She was busy all day until the afternoon when Minato Kobayashi appeared in her office. He looked a little wronged. "Akari, you didn't come to see me today." His injury wasn't fatal. Akari Sato's surgery took so long mainly because he had lost a lot of blood. He was physically strong and recovered quickly. Akari Sato calmly responded, "It's the end of the year, so things are busy." Minato Kobayashi carefully observed her expression. "Akari, I thought about what you said yesterday all night. I will keep my distance from my cousin. I sincerely want to live a good life with you." A hint of sadness welled up in Akari Sato's heart. She changed the subject. "You should rest well. I'll bring you food tomorrow." Minato Kobayashi breathed a sigh of relief, holding her hand. "I knew my wife was the most thoughtful." The next morning, Akari Sato arrived at the hospital room with an insulated food container. At the doorway, she saw Yui Sato sitting by the bed, smiling and saying, "Minato, drink this quickly. This is milk I specifically bought from the state-run store." Minato Kobayashi took the milk, his expression soft. "Cousin, you're too extravagant. Don't waste money like this again. I still have some malted milk at home. When you're discharged, I'll bring some over for you and Kanta." Akari Sato stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. After a long while, she smiled silently, turned around, and returned to her office, where she alone drank the astragalus and pork rib soup. She had woken up at 6 in the morning to make as she put down the insulated container. Her hand trembled slightly, and her eyes instantly turned red. Over the next 2 days, Akari Sato completed all her work handover on December 29th. Only 3 days remained until her departure. She was organizing her newly received documents and train tickets when Sister Suzuki rushed in. "Dr. Sato, you should go and persuade your husband. He wants to be discharged early." When Akari Sato arrived, Minato Kobayashi had already put on his military uniform. She didn't stop him, only asked, "Why?" Minato Kobayashi hesitated, then said, "Those child traffickers have accomplices. My cousin just said she felt someone was following her, so I applied to lead a team to apprehend them." It was Yui Sato again. Akari Sato's eyes were utterly cold. She turned to Sister Suzuki and said, "Let him be discharged." Minato Kobayashi sighed in relief. Before leaving, he took her hand again. "These people are not to be trifled with, and they're caught because of me. If I don't catch them, you'll also be in danger." Akari Sato nodded, helping him adjust his collar, and gave him the usual everyday instruction, "Be careful." Minato Kobayashi, for some reason, felt his heart inexplicably skip a beat. A surge of panic. He hugged Akari Sato and whispered in her ear, "Wife, I remember the 1st is our wedding anniversary. I'll be back on time." Then he let go and hurried away. Akari Sato's palm instantly felt empty, just like her once thought perfect marriage. Looking at the back that had once given her endless security, she lowered her eyes and turned, walking in the opposite direction. After that, Minato Kobayashi didn't come home for several days. On the evening of December 31st, 1 day away from Akari Sato's departure, Akari Sato sat alone in the already neatly tidied house. The house was cold and empty. Minato Kobayashi still hadn't returned, only sending a message of safety through Mrs. Tanaka's husband. She waited until the clock struck 12, its chime echoing through the quiet room. January 1st had arrived. A silent night passed. As dawn broke, Akari Sato stretched her stiff body and picked up her pen to write a letter. Sad smiley. Minato Kobayashi, by the time you read this letter, I will have already left. That day, I heard everything you said to Ren Suzuki. It's hard to believe that my husband loves my cousin. After my parents passed away, I thought there was no one left in this world to love me, but then I met you. You said you would treat me well, that you would love me, and I believed you. However, it seems I believed the wrong person. 3 years of marriage, our fate has ended. Let's end this fake performance that was born to keep me stable. Early morning of January 1st outside, A clamor arose. A new year had begun. Akari Sato placed the divorce report and the written letter on the bedside table. She picked up her luggage, took one last look at the home she had lived in for 3 years, and gently closed the door at 7:50 a.m. At the train station, Akari Sato, enveloped by the crowd, boarded the train. At 8 a.m. sharp, a green-skinned train bound for Tokyo slowly pulled out of Amagasaki City. With this departure, she and Minato Kobayashi would be worlds apart, never to meet again in this life. Unbeknownst to her, the clouds had dispersed, and the long-awaited sunlight streamed through the train window, falling upon Akari Sato. She raised her hand and caught the light. The future is boundless, and there is still much time ahead. And she, too, would never look back. In the afternoon, a jeep drove into the family housing complex. Minato Kobayashi had returned from his mission. Akari, my mission went very smoothly this time. The commander mentioned my next promotion, he spoke as he pushed open the door to their house. The empty room suddenly silenced his voice, and his smile vanished with it. He quickly saw the letter on the bedside table. A premonition of ill omen surged within him. He quickly rushed forward, and after just one glance, his face instantly turned pale. Ignoring everything else, he got directly into the jeep and sped towards the hospital. Bursting into Akari Sato's consulting room, he saw a young nurse tidying up items. "Where's Akari?" His voice trembled. The young nurse was startled by him. After recognizing him as Minato Kobayashi, she calmed down slightly, but then, she showed a surprised expression. Dr. Sato went to Tokyo for advanced training. Her train was at 8 this morning. Didn't Commander Kobayashi know? The young nurse's puzzled expression pierced his heart like a sharp blade, causing him unbearable pain. He opened his mouth, wanting to speak, but found his throat was choked, unable to utter a sound. Commander Kobayashi. A young soldier rushed in. Commander Kobayashi, the 8 o'clock train this morning, from Amagasaki City to Tokyo, encountered a landslide. Half the carriages are buried. Minato Kobayashi's ears seemed to thunder, his mind went blank. Golden stars flickered before his eyes, he couldn't see anything clearly. The young soldier called out repeatedly, but Minato Kobayashi made no response. He looked at the dumbfounded Minato Kobayashi and raised his voice. "Commander Kobayashi, Superior orders us to immediately go to the scene for rescue." Minato Kobayashi then snapped back to reality and rushed out. The young soldier followed closely. The train accident site isn't far from the Kanto garrison. They'll also send people to assist with the rescue. Minato Kobayashi didn't hear a word of it. He jumped into the jeep, his gaze fixed forward, with only one thought in his mind: to rescue Akari Sato. Alive or dead, he had to find her. The jeep sped along the mountain road, raising dust. It wasn't until nightfall that Minato Kobayashi arrived at the train accident site. Rescue operations had already begun, and cries of pain echoed everywhere. On both sides of the accident site were mountains. Rocks had tumbled down, hitting the middle of the train and causing it to overturn and derail. Minato Kobayashi looked at the massive rocks blocking his path, a chill gripping his heart. If Akari Sato was in those buried carriages, Ren Suzuki, supporting an injured person, crawled out of a twisted carriage and handed the injured person over to medical personnel. He was about to return to the carriage again when he saw Minato Kobayashi standing not far away, his eyes red, selecting tools. "You go to that carriage. There are still several unconscious survivors inside." The designated soldier immediately saluted. "Yes, Captain Suzuki," and then quickly entered the designated carriage. Ren Suzuki walked over to Minato Kobayashi and looked at the tools in his hand. "Are you going to move those rocks?" "I'll go with you." At such a scene, clearing rocks was extremely dangerous. No one could guarantee that rocks wouldn't fall again from above, and rescuers could also be buried. Minato Kobayashi always rushed to the forefront, and as his friend, Ren Suzuki usually followed him. Now, seeing Minato Kobayashi intending to clear the rocks, he also picked up tools and followed. But when he saw Minato Kobayashi digging frantically, Ren Suzuki was shocked. He quickly grabbed Minato Kobayashi's arm. "What's wrong with you?" Minato Kobayashi pushed him away, continuing to dig with a grim expression. Ren Suzuki stared at his almost frenzied face, stunned. They had known each other for over 20 years, since childhood, serving in the military together, coming to Amagasaki City together. This was the first time he had seen Minato Kobayashi so out of control. Seeing blood seeping from Minato Kobayashi's abdomen, Ren Suzuki stepped forward again and pulled him away. Your wounds haven't fully healed, and you didn't rest well after the last mission. If you keep this up, you'll ruin your body. Minato Kobayashi shook off Ren Suzuki's hand, panting heavily several times before speaking in a hoarse voice. Akari was on this train. Ren Suzuki's expression stiffened. He wanted to offer a few words of comfort, but he didn't know what to say. The abdominal wound tore open, and a piercing pain radiated through him. Several soldiers who were digging quietly sighed. Buried like this, it seems there are no survivors inside. Minato Kobayashi felt as if that sentence was a switch. His whole body's blood surged, and the taut string in his mind snapped instantly at that moment. His vision went black, and he fainted. When he awoke, it was 3 days later, and Minato Kobayashi was lying in a hospital bed at the Amagasaki City Clinic. He gazed at the swaying light bulb on the ceiling, breathing in the air filled with the scent of disinfectant, his consciousness gradually clearing. Ren Suzuki, seeing him awaken, finally relaxed his tense face somewhat. Your injury got so severely infected. Why didn't you say something sooner? Do you know how much effort the doctors put in to bring you back from that fever? His tone was reproachful, but Minato Kobayashi just listened quietly. He always valued his mission more than his life. Especially with that group of child traffickers last time, they had a vast network behind them. He was the one who discovered this, and he had to participate in subsequent operations to prevent that group from retaliating against his family. In the environment of performing missions, conditions were naturally not as good as in a hospital, and he had suffered more serious injuries. Before, having walked countless times on the edge of life and death, he didn't pay too much attention to this wound infection. He thought that after the mission, Akari Sato would help him treat his wound, and then he would just take leave to rest properly. He had always done it this way. The mention of Akari Sato, Minato Kobayashi's empty eyes flickered slightly. He spoke with difficulty, his voice as hoarse as sandpaper. How are the rescue efforts proceeding? Ren Suzuki knew that he truly wanted to ask about Akari Sato's whereabouts. He looked troubled, unsure how to tell Minato Kobayashi the cruel outcome of this accident, but under Minato Kobayashi's urgent gaze, he still spoke. The site has been mostly cleared. I checked Akari Sato's train ticket. The carriage she was in, unfortunately, was completely buried. Those carriages, no survivors were found. His voice grew softer and softer, but every word clearly reached Minato Kobayashi's ears. A storm seemed to rage in Minato Kobayashi's heart. With surging waves, his already pale face was now even more bloodless. He closed his eyes, his eyelids trembling uncontrollably, but his voice was calm, without a ripple. I want to be alone for a while. Ren Suzuki hesitated, then finally just shook his head and walked out of the hospital room. The room immediately fell into silence. The blue curtains were drawn, and sunlight streamed through the gaps, stinging his eyes. When Ren Suzuki left, he merely closed the door softly. Minato Kobayashi's hearing was excellent. Even in the hospital room, he could clearly hear the sounds outside. Do you know how much disaster that landslide caused? Dozens of people died. More than that. I saw the report. Many carriages were crushed flat. How many people must have been in one carriage? I heard some carriages were so deformed. Can the people inside still be rescued? I heard the scene was horrific, bloody. Further away, sporadic cries of sorrow could be heard. Many people were injured in this disaster. Many were given emergency treatment and sent to clinics in various places, but some were too severely injured, and sending them to the clinic only temporarily delayed their death. Minato Kobayashi listened to these sounds, and the grief in his heart grew heavier. He closed his eyes tightly, trying to block out the outside noise. His exhausted body gradually succumbed to sleep. Just as he was about to fall asleep, the door was gently pushed open, and someone quietly walked in. Out of instinctive alertness, Minato Kobayashi suddenly opened his eyes. With one look, he froze. Was it Akari? But upon closer inspection, the light in his eyes dimmed again. He looked at the person who entered, and called out flatly, "Cousin." Yui Sato, sitting on the plastic stool by the bed, froze for a moment when she heard Minato Kobayashi's somewhat cold tone. However, she quickly regained her normal expression, adding a touch of grief. Someone from the military came to the Sato household today, saying that little sister was on that train involved in the accident. As she spoke, she lowered her head, pretending to wipe away non-existent tears. In the past, at a time like this, Minato Kobayashi would surely have started comforting her, but today, she waited for a while, her hand getting a bit sore from being held up, and still heard no sound from Minato Kobayashi. She secretly raised her eyes and found that Minato Kobayashi wasn't looking at her at all. He was staring blankly. Even when he used to stare blankly in front of her, he should have been staring at her face. An inexplicable surge of anger rose in her heart. Yui Soto frowned slightly and softly called out again, "Minato?" She didn't even call him brother-in-law anymore. Minato Kobayashi was startled out of his trance, but his face was tense. "Cousin, it's not appropriate for you to call me that." Yui Soto was utterly stunned that in her past life, Minato Kobayashi was her man. After they got married, he was incredibly attentive to her, allowing her to live a carefree life for several years. It was just a pity that he died too early. Although all his allowances later went into her pocket, she still didn't live very well. So, after her rebirth, even though she knew marrying Minato Kobayashi would lead to a good life, she still chose the very difficult Haruto Tanaka at the time. But even so, she still felt that Minato Kobayashi liked her. This made her feel especially gratified, feeling that she had thoroughly suppressed Akari Sato in both lives. This was the first time she had heard Minato Kobayashi speak to her in such a cold tone. This gave her a strong feeling that she might no longer hold any weight with Minato Kobayashi in the future. Thinking this, her voice became even softer. "It's my fault. I was in a hurry and called you by the wrong name." She sighed softly. "Brother-in-law, we're all very sad about Akari's situation. You're her husband, you must be suffering much more than we are. So I came to check on you. If you need anything." Minato Kobayashi only felt her voice buzzing in his ears like mosquitoes on a muggy summer night, irritating him that he couldn't stand it anymore, and interrupted, "Cousin, I need to rest. Let's talk later." Yui Soto's face paled. How could Minato Kobayashi treat her like this? But she could only comfort herself, telling herself that he was only like this because of Akari Sato's death. Then, "Brother-in-law, please rest well. I'll come see you again when I have time." With that, she left the room, looking back 3 times with every step. But Minato Kobayashi didn't look at her again. His mind was in a complete mess right now. In the past, he should have been very happy when Yui Soto came to see him. But today, he wasn't happy at all. In fact, all he could think about was Akari Sato, thinking about the letter she left behind, thinking about the last time he saw her before his mission, thinking about her death, and then, their wedding night would flash before his eyes. He had carefully told her that he would treat her well, that he would love her. Her eyes, which had brightened just a little, he could now remember clearly. In a blink, a hot tear rolled from the corner of his eye. In the evening, Ren Suzuki finished his work and came to the hospital room. However, when he pushed open the door, he saw the entire room was empty. Minato Kobayashi was gone. Ren Suzuki's heart jolted, and he quickly grabbed a passing nurse, asking, "Where did the patient from this room go?" The nurse checked the room number and shook her head helplessly. Commander Kobayashi insisted on being discharged. "We couldn't stop him." Ren Suzuki gritted his teeth in anger, but as a longtime friend, he could roughly guess Minato Kobayashi's whereabouts. He didn't hesitate and immediately headed for the family housing complex. He was unmarried and lived in the military's single dormitory. He only set foot in the family housing complex when he came to visit Minato Kobayashi. Pushing open the door, a strong smell of alcohol assaulted him. Minato Kobayashi sat slumped in a corner, leaning against the wall, his left hand gripping a piece of paper, his right hand holding a wine bottle. Empty wine bottles were scattered all over the floor. Ren Suzuki's blood pressure soared. He strode over to Minato Kobayashi, snatching the wine bottle from his hand. "Minato Kobayashi, are you trying to die?" Minato Kobayashi's vacant eyes finally showed a flicker of emotion. He blinked, then actually chuckled. "Yes, I am trying to die. Now, what's the point of me living?" Ren Suzuki's hand, gripping his collar, froze. His gaze involuntarily fell on the piece of paper in Minato Kobayashi's hand. "Minato Kobayashi, when you see this letter," he paused, then sat down beside Minato Kobayashi. "What exactly are you thinking? You personally told me that you had no feelings for Akari Sato, and that you married her only for Yui Soto. To put it harshly, Akari Sato's death should be a good thing for you. She's gone, you don't have to pretend to have deep affection for her anymore, and you don't have to worry about her affecting Yui Soto's life. So why are you acting so self-destructive now?" Minato Kobayashi lowered his head, occasionally letting out a few dry laughs. He didn't know why either. He only felt a huge rock weighing down on his heart, making it impossible to breathe. Even if he opened his mouth wide and inhaled forcefully, he couldn't feel a trace of oxygen. This feeling of suffocation was unbearable. He seemed to see a phantom of Akari Sato, every expression so vivid. Minato Kobayashi tilted his head back, his skull hitting the wall with a loud thud that startled Ren Suzuki. But he felt the impact made him much clearer. He opened his mouth. I miss her. I want to see her. But Akari Sato had long since been buried beneath that landslide. Ren Suzuki didn't know how to comfort him and could only softly say, so, you actually fell in love with her a long time ago, didn't you? Minato Kobayashi's pupils constricted, then he laughed wildly. He laughed until tears streamed down his face, and he didn't stop until his eyes were red. Ren Suzuki watched him in this state, feeling a pang of sorrow himself. Thankfully, after laughing himself tired, Minato Kobayashi finally calmed down a little. He carefully folded the paper in his hand and put it into his inner jacket pocket. Ren, take me back to the hospital. Minato Kobayashi thus returned to the hospital as if he had never left. The next day, Yui Sato came again, carrying a bag of expensive fruit. Brother-in-law, these are all things I specially got from the cooperative store. Minato Kobayashi merely glanced at her indifferently, then picked up his 4-drip and walked towards the door. His coldness made Yui Sato's face change. Just as he was about to open the door, Yui Sato suddenly rushed forward and tightly embraced him. Minato, please don't treat me like this, okay? Actually, I've known all these years, you still have old feelings for me, right? I know you're treating me this way because you're sad about Akari's situation, but even without Akari, your life still has to go on. If you break down, I'll worry too. Yui Sato's voice was soft, each word seemingly designed to reach his heart, but Minato Kobayashi was unmoved. He mercilessly pried her hands away. You and I are just brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Please, comrade Yui Sato, pay attention to propriety. I want to go out and get some fresh air. I won't stay here with you. With that, he held up his 4-drip with one hand, opened the door, and left directly. Yui Sato watched his retreating figure gradually disappear, her face filled with astonishment. How could Minato Kobayashi have changed so much since Akari Sato's death? For the past few years, knowing that Minato Kobayashi still liked her, she had always felt that she had a firm upper hand over Akari Sato, and her heart was filled with satisfaction. But now, because of Akari Sato, Minato Kobayashi was so cold to her, and she felt exceptionally unwilling to accept it. Minato Kobayashi's heart could only belong to her, Yui Sato mused, unaware that Haruto Tanaka, who happened to come to the hospital today due to a cold, had just caught sight of her. These past few days, Haruto Tanaka had already found her a bit strange, so when he saw her, he didn't call out to her. Instead, he followed behind her. Haruto Tanaka heard every word she just said to Minato Kobayashi. And, just as Minato Kobayashi left, he also saw Haruto Tanaka's departing figure. If it were before, fearing that Haruto Tanaka might become suspicious of Yui Sato because of this, he would surely have stopped him and explained thoroughly, but now, he only gave a cold glance and left without saying anything. He no longer cared what happened to Yui Sato. After that, Yui Sato always found various excuses to come to the hospital to see Minato Kobayashi. Annoyed, he simply completed the discharge procedures and went home to recover. Ren Suzuki repeatedly told him to hold a funeral for Akari Sato, but he never agreed. Minato Kobayashi always felt that Akari Sato was not dead. Even though he had found people to search the accident site countless times, he still hadn't received any definitive news. He had even looked at all the unrecognizable victims. The identities of many people could not be discerned, but he just knew that Akari Sato was not among these bodies. His wife might be waiting for him somewhere right now. The only reason she wouldn't contact him could be that she lost her memory during the accident, or perhaps she was too severely injured at the time and hadn't recovered yet. Ren Suzuki felt that his state was not normal and didn't dare to say anything to provoke him. Days passed by 1.2 years later. Tokyo First General Hospital. Minato Kobayashi, covered in blood, was wheeled into the emergency room. His eyes were tightly closed, his consciousness already blurring. He seemed to no longer feel the pain of his injuries, but he could feel that it was somewhat cold. It felt as if something was being drawn from his body. This feeling was incredibly familiar, the feeling of being near death, but a voice kept telling him, Minato Kobayashi, you can't die. You haven't found Akari Sato yet. It was this thought alone that had kept him going until now, but he couldn't hold on any longer. It was then that a voice etched into his bones suddenly echoed in his ear. Heartbeat is weak, pupils are dilating, he struggled to open his eyes, and sure enough, he saw the face he had longed for day and night. He smiled and opened his mouth, Akari. But with that single word, Minato Kobayashi completely exhausted his last shred of strength. His vision went black, and all that remained in his ears were the frantic voices of the medical staff in the emergency room. And his consciousness, amidst these sounds, gradually sank. When he woke up again, he was in a special ward. Minato Kobayashi stared blankly at the swaying light bulb on the ceiling for a long time before his consciousness slowly returned. Ren Suzuki happened to push the door open. Seeing him awake, his constantly worrying heart finally settled. However, thinking of a certain person in the hospital, his expression became somewhat complex. He adjusted the expression on his face. "You've been lying down for so long, finally willing to wake up, huh?" Minato Kobayashi was stunned. After a long while, he turned his head to look at Ren Suzuki. "Before I fainted, I think I saw Akari." Ren Suzuki's expression stiffened. Thinking of the cold woman he had just seen, he tried to change the subject. "You must have been hallucinating, right?" He poured a cup of the hot water he had just fetched. "Drink some water." Minato Kobayashi remained silent, took the water, and took a sip. A hallucination? He didn't think so. The Akari Sato he saw had a neat short haircut, and her eyes held a calm and self-possessed demeanor. He had never seen Akari Sato like that before, and he couldn't have hallucinated her that way. But seeing Ren Suzuki's demeanor, it was clear he didn't want to discuss this topic, so he didn't speak again either. Ren Suzuki was preoccupied with his thoughts, sitting there in a daze. The hospital room became somewhat quiet. It wasn't until half an hour later that several people in white coats walked in. Leading them was a middle-aged director in his 50s or 60s, wearing glasses. Minato Kobayashi's gaze swept past him directly, landing on the person following behind him. It really was Akari Sato. He watched her without blinking until her clear, sharp gaze swept over him. The director handed the clipboard in his hand back to Akari Sato, then leaned down to examine Minato Kobayashi. Heart rate 110, diastolic pressure 72, systolic pressure. Akari Sato didn't even lift her head, simply diligently recording the numbers the director reported. She completely ignored Minato Kobayashi's direct gaze, as if she had never known this person. "The patient's heart rate is a bit high. We need to continue observing him." After the examination, the director said to Ren Suzuki, "Everything else is recovering well. Since he's awake, it means there's no longer any danger to his life." Ren Suzuki quickly nodded, asked many more questions, and then saw them out. Minato Kobayashi's gaze remained fixed on the doorway. Ren Suzuki said, annoyed, "Stop looking, she's already gone. You were so preoccupied with her, but she acted as if she didn't know you at all. I didn't know how to tell you just now, but since you've already seen her, I guess I have to talk to you about it. During these past few days you were unconscious. I spoke to her several times. She didn't lose her memory, but she hasn't written you a single letter in 2 years. I think you understand what that means better than I do." Hearing these words, Minato Kobayashi's wildly beating heart, which had surged at the sight of Akari Sato, finally calmed down. He pursed his lips, and after a long while, he spoke, "Bring her here. I want to talk to her." Ren Suzuki glared at him, frustrated, but still got up and walked out. Minato Kobayashi just lay on the bed, waiting for Akari Sato's arrival. About 10 minutes later, Ren Suzuki returned. Minato Kobayashi looked expectantly behind him, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. Ren Suzuki scoffed, "Don't bother. She said she needs to go home to take care of her child and won't come." Minato Kobayashi's mind buzzed. He asked incredulously, "What did you just say?" Ren Suzuki had no choice but to repeat. "Akari Sato said it's almost time to leave work and she needs to go home to take care of her child. She'll talk tomorrow if there's anything else." Akari Sato, she has a child. In the 2 years since she left, she not only moved on from him but also married and even had a child. Minato Kobayashi felt as if his heart had been brutally stabbed, gushing blood. His breathing tightened. "Ren, please help me inquire again." Ren Suzuki looked at him with an expression of disappointment, but finally sighed and left the ward again. The renewed silence made Minato Kobayashi close his eyes in exhaustion. His coming to Tokyo had to be traced back 2 years to that time. After his injuries healed, he continued to search for Akari Sato. Starting from the scene of the accident, he searched all the surrounding towns and communities, but there was no news of Akari Sato even when he showed her photo to people from the other military unit that participated in the rescue. He didn't get any results. He continued this aimless search for over a year later. His heart gradually died, but it was at this moment that he remembered Akari Sato was supposed to go to Tokyo. This ignited a glimmer of hope in his heart again. He immediately applied for a transfer to Tokyo, and Ren Suzuki followed him. However, upon arriving in Tokyo, they were unfamiliar with the place, and their new unit hadn't found its footing yet. They could only ask people to keep an eye out for someone named Akari Sato. Tokyo had large hospitals, community health centers, and even some large factories had their own clinics. Searching so many places was like looking for a needle in a haystack. His men found no information at all. He never expected that this time, being injured by a bomb during a mission, would lead him to find Akari Sato. Ren Suzuki left this time and didn't return until 8 o'clock, carrying an aluminum lunchbox. "This is the porridge I got from the hospital cafeteria. You should eat some quickly." Seeing that Minato Kobayashi was just staring at him, with no intention of taking the lunchbox, Ren Suzuki was exasperated. "You drink while I tell you what I found out." Minato Kobayashi then took the lunchbox and lowered his head to drink the porridge. "I've found out everything. Akari Sato came to Tokyo 2 years ago. When she arrived, she had a child with her, who was about 5 years old. When people asked, she said it was an orphan she found on the road, and she took the child in because she felt sorry for them. Later, she rented a small apartment and lived with that child. Because she was recommended for advanced training, she had been studying at the university for the past 2 years, and only started being assigned to this hospital and studying under the director these past few days. I also heard that she has been a bit financially strained these past 2 years because she's raising a child while also going to school, but she seems to have been submitting articles to newspapers, which is also a source of income. As for what you're concerned about, I haven't heard any news of her being in a relationship with anyone." Minato Kobayashi leaned against the headboard, listening to these words. He had only taken a few sips of porridge and had lost his appetite. His heart felt as if it had been tightly squeezed, kneaded, and flattened, aching and swollen. The excitement of reuniting with her, the joy of hearing she wasn't in a relationship, all ultimately turned into heartache for the hardships she had endured these past 2 years. He wanted to put down the lunchbox, but he also knew that he had to recover quickly and stand before Akari Sato again. Thinking of this, he quickly finished the rest of the porridge and said firmly, "It's okay. I won't let her suffer those hardships again." The next day, Ren Suzuki appeared before Akari Sato for the 3rd time. "Comrade Sato, you understand Minato's character. Please help out and go see him." "Comrade Sato." Akari Sato gently curved her lips. In the past, as Minato Kobayashi's wife, Ren Suzuki had never addressed her this way. Every time they met, he always politely called her Akari Sato, his tone always carrying a hint of distance. Now that she thought about it, it was only because of Minato Kobayashi's coldness towards her that Ren Suzuki also overlooked her existence. Hearing the address Comrade Sato now, she only felt a hint of mockery, nothing else. She lowered her eyes, her expression even colder. "Minato Kobayashi and I have separated. There's no need to address me that way anymore." Ren Suzuki was speechless. He annoyingly scratched his hair. "Let's put that aside for now. You should still go see Minato. Although I don't know much about what happened back then, I can feel that there are many misunderstandings between you two. He missed you for 2 years, believing you had died in that accident, and he almost broke down." Ren Suzuki spoke urgently, hoping to touch Akari Sato's heart. Akari Sato, however, seemed impatient. "Fine, I'll go." If she refused again, Ren Suzuki would probably keep bothering her. It was better to just make things clear once and for all. Besides, the director had already assigned her to oversee Minato Kobayashi's follow-up treatment. They would have to meet sooner or later. Akari Sato, holding the medical record book, entered the ward to examine Minato Kobayashi, then sat on the chair by the bed. "If you have something to say, you can say it now." Minato Kobayashi looked at her eagerly. For some reason, he always felt that the Akari Sato before him was exceptionally beautiful. Even though she was expressionless and offered no smile towards him, he felt that every one of her movements stirred his heart. He couldn't help but smile. "Akari, long time no see." He was wrapped in bandages, his face still pale, but his eyes were bright as stars, as if they could draw people into his deep affection. Akari Sato, however, merely gave a faint glance, millimeter. Her coldness pained Minato Kobayashi's heart, but he still maintained his smile, his eyes gentle. Why didn't you write to me these past 2 years? If she had written to him, he would have known her whereabouts sooner, applied for a transfer directly to Tokyo, and found her. Then she wouldn't have had to worry about living expenses. He could have taken good care of her. Akari Sato, however, didn't understand his meaning and merely raised an eyebrow. Why would I write to you? A flicker of pain crossed Minato Kobayashi's eyes. He struggled to prop himself up. Perhaps it was the pain from his wound, but his voice carried a hint of pleading. Akari, you left the divorce agreement and letter and disappeared back then. Why couldn't you communicate with me face to face? I don't not love you, on the contrary, I deeply love you. You don't know when you had that accident. He was emotional. Halfway through his sentence, he gasped in pain as it tugged at his wound, and his words were cut short. Akari Sato watched him with unwavering indifference. Minato Kobayashi, saying all this now is too late. As soon as she finished speaking, she stood up, preparing to leave. But Akari Sato had only taken 2 steps when her wrist was grabbed. She looked down and saw that half of Minato Kobayashi's body was already hanging out of the bed. In his haste to grab her earlier, the bandages on his body were now beginning to seep blood. Akari Sato frowned and said coldly, "Let go." Minato Kobayashi's face was pale from the pain, and cold sweat instantly beaded on his forehead. His grip on her hand tightened with the pain. Without a doubt, her wrist must have a red mark around it now. "Don't go." He looked up, his eyes pleading. "I finally found you after so much effort." Akari Sato had never seen Minato Kobayashi in such a disheveled state, but she was a doctor, and she couldn't bear to see him so utterly disregard his own body. Sighing, she said, "I'll treat your wound." Minato Kobayashi looked at her, hesitant for a moment, before slowly releasing her hand as if afraid she was deceiving him and would vanish the next instant. Akari Sato said nothing more and went straight out. Minato Kobayashi sat up, focusing his gaze on the hospital room door. Every second felt so long. As he waited, Akari Sato's figure finally appeared at the doorway. She was holding a tray with new bandages and medicine on it. Akari Sato began to unwrap the blood-soaked bandages on Minato Kobayashi without a word. "It'll hurt a bit, bear with it." Millimeter. Minato Kobayashi lowered his eyes, looking at her clean hands and the red mark on her wrist. He pursed his lips. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just now." He still had words he hadn't finished, wanting her to stay a bit longer. Akari Sato didn't even raise an eyelid, focusing on cleaning his wound and applying medicine. Minato Kobayashi felt as if he had returned to more than 2 years ago. At that time, he would always have injuries from daily training or missions. There were always wound medicines kept at home each time. She would treat his wounds and apply medicine just like this. Back then, she would always scold him tenderly while applying the medicine. "You're such a grown man, why can't you protect yourself properly? It's not just you who hurts when you're injured, my heart aches too. What would I do if something happened to you and I was left alone?" By the end of applying the medicine, she would always be the first to start crying out of heartache. A smile tugged at Minato Kobayashi's lips as he snapped back to reality. He looked up at Akari Sato at this distance. He could clearly see the tiny hairs on her face. However, in her expression and eyes, he could no longer find the kind of heartache she used to have for him now. To her, he was just a patient, like anyone else. A fine, sharp pain pricked his heart, turning into bitterness that surged up his throat, leaving a sour taste on his tongue. He lowered his eyes, suppressing the surging emotions in his heart. "In the letter you left me, you said you knew I liked Yui Sato. I can't deny that I did like her before. Before we got married, she and I were in a free relationship. She was my girlfriend. At that time, I really liked her, and I always thought she and I would get married. Our feelings were clearly good, and I had even met her parents, and the marriage was set. But later, she suddenly came to me and said she was going to marry someone else. Meeting such a situation, I was naturally angry and insisted that she give me a reason. She said she didn't like me, she liked Haruto Tanaka, who already had a marriage agreement with you at that time." This matter, even now when Minato Kobayashi thought about it, still felt somewhat absurd. He silently twisted his lips into a smile. The pain in his body gnawed at his nerves like a saw, and he continued to distract himself. "At that time, I was really angry, and for some reason, when Yui Sato suggested that you marry me, I agreed. When Ren Suzuki asked me why I wanted to marry you, I couldn't find an answer. If I had known that a casual remark would lead to such consequences, I would rather have been mute at that time. Akari Sato's hand, applying medicine, paused slightly, but she quickly reacted, not letting him notice. A casual remark. She wasn't a fool. How could she believe such a thing? Minato Kobayashi didn't know Akari Sato's thoughts and continued, at that time, I still didn't know what kind of feelings I had for you. I only knew that you were my wife, so I had to be good to you. As for Yui Sato, I later figured it out. That wasn't love, nor was it being unable to let go, it was unwillingness to accept. Everyone said I was the youngest commander in the military, with limitless prospects. At that time, Haruto Tanaka was penniless and even had an engagement with you. Why would Yui Sato choose him? At this point, Minato Kobayashi paused and looked up at Akari Sato. Initially, I was good to you because you were my wife, it was my responsibility. But later, it wasn't. Being good to you became a habit ingrained in my bones, just like my daily training, it's something inherent, unchangeable, and indispensable. Akari Sato had already rebandaged him. She turned to look at him. I left for 2 years, and you're still fine. Neither of us is indispensable to the other. Minato Kobayashi choked. He turned his head, pretending not to hear her words, and continued, I was too foolish. It wasn't until I heard the news of your accident that I finally understood. His voice gradually faded until he completely closed his mouth. Akari Sato collected the items on the tray and turned back to look at him. In her eyes, there was still only indifference. A very engaging story. I have already reapplied the medicine and bandaged your wound. Please rest well. With that, she carried the tray and left. Minato Kobayashi wanted to stop her, but he lifted his arm and finally lay back down. She had just changed his dressing and rebandaged him. If he did it again, she would probably get angry. Lying on the hospital bed, Minato Kobayashi stared blankly at the ceiling lamp, sighing helplessly. He had said everything he wanted to say, but Akari Sato showed no sign of softening, which left him feeling deeply frustrated. Ren Suzuki returned half an hour later. Soon as he entered the room, his mouth started moving without pause. Did you talk to my sister-in-law? What was her reaction? The single sentence stung Minato Kobayashi's heart again. He pulled the quilt up a little to cover his face. Yes, she had no reaction. Ren Suzuki stroked his chin. No reaction is also a reaction, which at least proves that she doesn't care about you at all. Minato Kobayashi suddenly tightened his grip on the quilt, and the pain intensified. He then silently released his hand. Ren Suzuki had made a cheeky remark, but he didn't dare to say anything more to provoke him. Remembering what he had seen outside earlier, he cautiously began to speak. Didn't that Haruto Tanaka start developing in Tokyo? I saw Yui Sato coming to the gynecology department earlier. It seems she's pregnant again. He thought such news would elicit a reaction from Minato Kobayashi, but Minato Kobayashi didn't even stir. One had to remember that when Yui Sato was pregnant with Kanta, Minato Kobayashi's mood had been consistently bad during those days. Ren Suzuki, seeing that he truly had no other thoughts, finally voiced his own doubt, but it's a bit strange. Yui Sato came alone. Usually, Haruto Tanaka and she seemed to have such a good relationship. When his wife is pregnant, why wouldn't he accompany her? Minato Kobayashi rolled over, indicating he didn't want to hear such nonsense. Seeing this, Ren Suzuki shifted to other topics. Meanwhile, Akari Sato, after leaving Minato Kobayashi's ward, returned to her own consulting room. Since she had just been assigned here after advanced studies, her work here was relatively leisurely. It was soon evening. Since she had to be on duty today, she planned to eat in the hospital cafeteria. As she went downstairs, she heard someone call her name, the voice filled with fright. She turned around and saw Yui Sato sitting on a chair in the lobby, looking at her in disbelief. Akari Sato, is that really you? Not only was Akari Sato alive, but she had also come to a major hospital in Tokyo to be a doctor. A feeling of unwillingness rose in Yui Sato's heart. How could this be? Akari Sato was nothing more than a jinx who had cursed her parents to death since childhood. It was enough that she was good at academics. Even after she asked her father to make Akari Sato drop out of school, Akari Sato still managed to get a recommendation for university. She had given the soon-to-die Minato Kobayashi to Akari Sato, but then Minato Kobayashi was rescued by Akari Sato. How could the heavens be so good to a jinx like Akari Sato? Akari Sato merely glanced at the gloom on Yui Sato's face. having no desire to talk to her. According to the timeline of her previous life, at this time, Haruto Tanaka would also have nearly established himself in Tokyo, and his business would be getting better and better. It was not surprising for Yui Soto to be here. Thinking this, she turned to leave, but Yui Soto was shameless and immediately clung to her. I didn't mean anything else. I was just so surprised to see you just now. You don't know, everyone thought you died in that train accident, that's why I was so scared. I never thought you'd be a doctor in Tokyo now. As your older sister, of course, I'm happy for you. Akari Sato avoided her outstretched hand, which tried to link arms with hers. We both know what you're thinking. Don't act falsely in front of me, I'm not your audience. Yui Soto had no choice but to retract her hand. Just then, Haruto Tanaka walked in from outside. Yui Soto's expression instantly turned gentle. She went to meet him. Haruto, you're finally here to pick me up. I've been waiting for so long. She glanced at Akari Soto's retreating back, her voice softening further. The doctor said our baby is very healthy. Haruto Tanaka, however, frowned slightly. Since the checkup is done, let's go home. His tone sounded normal, but it carried a hint of coldness. Yui Soto never doubted Haruto Tanaka's love for her. After all, after Minato Kobayashi's death in her previous life, even though Haruto Tanaka didn't say it, he always stayed by her side and protected her. Even more so, after Akari Sato died of illness, Haruto Tanaka married her and ensured she had a carefree life in her later years. Therefore, she didn't notice Haruto Tanaka's coldness at all, only thinking that he was tired from handling business matters. Yui Soto linked arms with him. Haruto, do you know? My cousin isn't dead. I just saw her. She's a doctor at this hospital. Haruto Tanaka's steps outward paused, and he instinctively looked back, just in time to see Akari Sato's figure disappear around the corner. His brows slightly twitched, then he turned his head and continued walking forward, as if he had merely taken a casual glance backward. Yui Soto didn't think much of it. I wasn't wrong, was I? She began to complain to Haruto Tanaka as she used to. My cousin really has a good life. After 2 years, she's already working at this hospital. Haruto Tanaka listened, remaining silent. The two gradually disappeared at the hospital entrance. Akari Sato merely regarded meeting Yui Soto as an insignificant interlude. After getting her meal from the cafeteria, she returned to her small consulting room. For her, the consulting room was like another home. Eating here was more comfortable than in the cafeteria. After eating and washing her lunchbox, she tidied up a few notebooks with her previous school notes and went to the on-call room. Unless it was an emergency, the hospital didn't receive patients at night. She only needed to ensure the hospitalized patients were well looked after. With the on-duty nurse Akari Sato flipped through her notes, not wasting a single moment. Around midnight, the on-duty nurse went to check on the patients. The door to the on-call room had always been open. Ren Suzuki arrived at the doorway and knocked twice. Akari Sato looked up. Seeing him, she thought something had happened with Minato Kobayashi again, so she stood up and walked out. What happened to him? Minato's fine. Ren Suzuki brought out his hand from behind his back. He asked me to bring this to you. He said you might get hungry at night and should have something to fill your stomach. The list of on-duty personnel was posted in the corridor, so it was normal for Minato Kobayashi to know. Akari Sato looked at the roasted sweet potato in Ren Suzuki's hand and pursed her lips. Back in Amagasaki City, she often had to be on duty too. Minato Kobayashi would often buy some chiffon cakes or almond biscuits and put them in her consulting room drawer, so she could eat whenever she got hungry. If the military had nothing going on, he would even come in the middle of the night to bring her food. Sometimes it was porridge he had cooked himself, sometimes it was roasted sweet potatoes he had bought from a roadside vendor. Undeniably, he was very, very good to her at that time, but those were all deceptive illusions, driven by ulterior motives. Akari Sato twitched her lips. No thanks. We can't accept things from the public. If there's nothing else, don't come looking for me here. Ren Suzuki was stunned for a moment, then chuckled slyly, with a hint of flattery. How can Minato and I be considered the public? You're Minato's wife, my sister-in-law. Minato cares about you working hard and asked me to bring something. The nature of it is different. Akari Sato frowned. Minato Kobayashi and I are already divorced. Ren Suzuki chuckled. Sister-in-law, are you referring to the divorce report you left? Minato burned it to ashes. You know, military personnel need to file reports for both marriage and divorce. So, you and Minato are still married. He finished speaking and shoved the roasted sweet potato into Akari Sato's hand. Here, just take it. He smiled broadly, turned to leave, and at the last minute, added, food is precious, don't waste it. Akari Sato watched him leave quickly, the roasted sweet potato in her hand. She couldn't decide whether to throw it away or not. She sighed, placed the still warm roasted sweet potato on the table, and decided to share it with the nurses when they returned. However, she couldn't focus on her notes anymore. Ren Suzuki's remark, still married, made it impossible for her to calm down. Early in the morning, Akari Sato left the hospital. If she were alone, she would certainly choose to live in the hospital's staff dormitory. However, since a little girl was with her, she rented a small house to live in. When she returned home, Eiko had already eaten something and gone to school. When the train accident happened, Akari Sato's carriage was right in the severely affected area, but she was lucky. 10 minutes before the accident, she was very hungry and went to the front carriage to buy food, just narrowly escaping. She had undergone many emergency training sessions, protecting herself, and didn't suffer many injuries. However, when the train overturned, she also fainted directly. When she woke up again, she had already been rescued from the train wreckage. Her clothes were torn in several places, and her face was covered with small wounds and scabs, making it impossible to see her original appearance. The soldiers who came to rescue were from another military zone. There wasn't a single familiar face. After eating some food given by the medical staff, she also joined the rescue efforts, but the time to report to Tokyo was urgent. The military was originally going to give her some rewards, but she didn't take any and left directly. Eiko was a survivor of that disaster. Her parents both died on the train, and there was no one else left in her family. At that moment, Akari Sato felt like she saw her younger self in Eiko. With a sudden softening of her heart, she took Eiko with her. Fortunately, her documents, money, and tickets were all carried close to her body, so even though her luggage was lost on the train, the loss wasn't significant. And so, she brought Eiko to Tokyo. She had various documents and letters of introduction from the old director, making it very easy to settle in Tokyo. But Eiko didn't, so she had no choice but to have Eiko change her surname to Sato and recognize her as her mother, which resolved a series of issues they had relied on each other for these 2 years. Although life was a bit tough, their hearts were sweet enough. Akari Sato had been up all night and fell asleep as soon as she returned to her room. For the next half-month, at first, Ren Suzuki was often sent by Minato Kobayashi to bring her things. Later, when Minato Kobayashi's injuries improved significantly, he started bringing them himself. Of course, with the exception of the roasted sweet potato that night, Akari Sato rejected all subsequent items. Yui Sato also used excuses to visit her several times and thus learned that Minato Kobayashi was hospitalized here with injuries. In the hospital, various rumors also began to spread. In the cafeteria, Akari Sato was standing in line when she overheard people talking behind her. Their voices were not small, and they weren't afraid at all that Akari Sato, the subject of their discussion, would hear what they were saying. You don't know this yet, do you? That new Dr. Sato is Commander Kobayashi's wife from the special ward. Everyone knows that news, okay? But I heard that Dr. Sato ran away to Tokyo, divorced Commander Kobayashi, and he refused, so she just left by herself. No way, a commander husband, how much allowance does he get a year? How could she just say she doesn't want it? At that time, Commander Kobayashi's position couldn't have been as high as it is now. She must have thought Tokyo was better, so she didn't want this husband, did she? I really didn't see it coming. She's actually that kind of person. It's about climbing the ladder. What's the big deal? I just don't know if she regrets it now that Commander Kobayashi holds such a high position and power. Where did you hear these rumors? I'm the nurse responsible for Commander Kobayashi's floor. Commander Kobayashi often brings Dr. Sato things. I've seen it clearly. Their relationship is very good. These discussions fell, word for word, into Akari Sato's ears. To be precise, these past few days, no matter where she went, she could hear such discussions. Everyone's accounts were different, like the young nurse who spoke last. Some who had seen Minato Kobayashi bringing her things said her relationship with Minato Kobayashi was good. Even though she rejected him every time, they only assumed she was embarrassed in public. And the accounts from medical staff on other floors were completely different. They even knew some things that happened in Amagasaki City. telling them vividly and convincingly without thinking. Akari Sato knew the source must be Yui Sato. They were just a few innocuous words, and Akari Sato didn't want to bother with them after all. She had experienced similar criticisms many times before. She wasn't that she hadn't clarified things, but people are like that. They only want to believe what they want to believe, and no matter how much effort she put in, all she would get was, "It's just a few words about you. It's not like you'll lose any flesh. Why are you so aggressive?" Her heart, too, had grown cold bit by bit in this way. The hospital rumors also reached Minato Kobayashi's ears. In the ward, Minato Kobayashi ate the food Ren Suzuki brought back. "Go investigate what's going on with the rumors in the hospital." Ren Suzuki yawned. "I know you care about sister-in-law. I've already investigated. All those messy things were done by Yui Sato. You said she used to be so delicate and fragile, looking especially kind, and I never expected her to do these things. Sister-in-law is her sister. What good does it do her to slander her own sister?" Minato Kobayashi's eyes darkened. "It's Yui Sato, so I'm not surprised." He was shirtless, and his wounds were now scabbed over a large area, looking somewhat frightening. Ren Suzuki raised an eyebrow. "So you already knew she was like that? Then why did you like her so much before?" Minato Kobayashi's hand holding the chopstick stiffened, and he pursed his lips, not answering. He silently finished the food in the lunchbox before speaking. "Go clarify these things." "Me?" Ren Suzuki's eyes widened in disbelief. "Other things are fine, but how am I supposed to clarify the rumors that she kicked you out as her husband? And even if we're to clarify, it's not just about talking. We need to show some solid evidence, right?" Minato Kobayashi was silent for a moment. "You take a leave of absence and go back to Amagasaki." Ren Suzuki shook his head. "You're really not polite with me." "Fine, for the sake of our brotherhood, I'll make the trip." Akari Sato had originally thought that this rumor would pass with time, but recently, even a few classmates with whom she had a good relationship and who had also come from school for advanced studies had deliberately distanced themselves from her. Until this day, a worker who had an accident at a factory was brought to the hospital. Akari Sato, without a word, changed her clothes and was about to enter the emergency room when she was blocked. Yui Sato's belly was already showing, and she stood before her, still looking pitiful. "Little sister, let someone else do this surgery." She hesitated to speak, her eyes still carrying some fear. Akari Sato didn't know what new trick she was trying to pull. Saving a life was more important, and she didn't want to waste any more words here. Seeing this, the injured person's family couldn't help but ask, "What's going on?" Yui Sato, however, looked troubled and unwilling to speak. She kept glancing at Akari Sato with small eyes, as if Akari Sato were some kind of fierce beast. A patient's family member, who was watching the commotion, spoke up. "What else could it be? We all know that Dr. Sato, she's caused deaths during surgery." These words landed squarely in Akari Sato's ears. To be precise, for the past few days, no matter where she went, she could hear such discussions. Everyone's accounts were still different. "We wouldn't dare to let Dr. Sato examine us." As soon as these words fell, the family member of the patient who had just been pushed into the emergency room immediately grabbed Akari Sato's arm. "No, you can't let this quack treat my child." Akari Sato had no idea what was happening, or why these people gathered to watch the commotion were trying to frame her like this again. She had no choice but to patiently explain. "Comrade, I have never caused a death during treatment. If you hold me here and prevent me from entering the emergency room, you will only delay the injured person's treatment." The person, however, was unrelenting. "No. We need a different doctor." For a time, they were deadlocked there. The director, who rushed over after hearing the news, understood the situation, remained silent for a moment, then turned to a doctor behind him. "You take Akari Sato's place and complete this surgery. As for the others, come with me." The old woman, who was the first family member to say Akari Sato had caused a death, pointed to herself. "Me too, do I have to go?" The director nodded. "Yes. Since you are making the accusation, you are one of the witnesses." The old woman's face changed slightly, but she still nodded. Finally, a few people followed the director to his office. Some who enjoyed watching drama surrounded the office door, craning their necks to look inside. Inside the office, the director looked at Akari Sato. "Comrade Akari Sato, I've also heard rumors about you recently. Can you explain?" Akari Sato had no idea what this was about. Even when she heard rumors about herself, they were related to Minato Kobayashi. She hadn't heard anyone say to her face that she had caused deaths during treatment. Someone is slandering me. I have never caused a death during treatment. The old woman raised her eyebrows. You, girl, are just quibbling. If you've never done it, how could such a rumor spread? Director, this is a serious matter concerning all patient. You must dismiss her. Akari Sato felt all the blood rush to her head, making it difficult for her to remain rational. She hadn't felt this angry in a long time. All the baseless accusations she had endured in Amagasaki County flooded her mind, leaving her feeling bound by invisible ropes, unable to move. She clenched her fingers tightly, maintaining her composure. Madam, such words require evidence. You can't just say I stole your belongings with a flick of your tongue, and then I've actually stolen them, right? It's always the accuser who presents evidence to prove what the accused has done. How can I prove something I haven't done? The director frowned deeply. Comrade Akari Sato is right. We cannot believe things without evidence. However, this matter had to be resolved quickly. The longer the rumors persisted, the more detrimental it would be to the hospital's reputation. The old woman, however, stiffened her neck. You're all in it together. You're definitely going to cover for her. I think you, the director, are no good either. This quack replaced someone to go to university, and she didn't even graduate from elementary school. Isn't it normal for her to cause a death during treatment? The director was originally someone who focused solely on medical research and didn't pay much attention to outside matters, so he didn't know what to say at this moment. When Akari Sato heard the old woman say this, she still couldn't guess who was behind these things. She never expected that even after leaving Amagasaki County, even after she had left Minato Kobayashi, Yui Sato still wouldn't let her go. Just as she was about to explain, the office door opened, and Minato Kobayashi walked in. I have evidence. Minato Kobayashi stood at the doorway, his light blue shirt still unable to conceal his sturdy build. His pants pockets were bulging, filled with who knew what. He didn't close the office door, striding over to Akari Sato's side. I have evidence to prove Dr. Sato's innocent. The people who were already watching the commotion outside the office immediately poked their heads in. The director had originally wanted Minato Kobayashi to close the door, as such matters spreading wouldn't sound good. But on second thought, since Minato Kobayashi had evidence of Akari Sato's innocence, it would be best to state it publicly, so he remained silent. I am a brigade commander in the Tokyo military region, and before this, I was stationed in Amagasaki County. Minato Kobayashi said, pulling out a stack of folded documents from his pants pocket. Director, these are all of Comrade Sato's past surgical records that I found from Amagasaki County. Even the old director said she was the best surgeon in Amagasaki County. As for replacing someone to go to university, that's even more baseless. Here are also the letters from the recommender for the university spot at that time. You can also take a look. Comrade Sato was recommended to Tokyo for advanced study and to serve the people after layers of selection. I believe the director is well aware of her academic performance and abilities in Tokyo's school. The director took the documents from Minato Kobayashi's hand and slowly flipped through them. Outside the door, the onlookers had already begun to whisper. That's right, this is the first general hospital. Not just anyone can get in. If Dr. Sato's skills were truly bad, she would have been expelled long ago. But I heard others speak so confidently about it. Such things don't come out of nowhere, do they? Exactly, why not slander others, just her? She must not be a good person herself. Their voices were not small, and Akari Sato naturally heard every word clearly, but she had heard such things enough times, so she didn't react, simply looking at the director, waiting for him to speak. Minato Kobayashi, beside her, looked down at her, his eyes filled with heartache. For so many years, she had grown up amidst such words, but, in the past, he rarely stood on her side. Thinking of this, his heart felt as if it had been pricked with needles. At every touch, there was excruciating pain. The old woman was also somewhat flustered at this moment, but she still stiffened her neck. You think these few pieces of paper are enough to fool us? The director had finished reading all the records and letters, his voice slightly cold. These records are all genuine, and the letters also explain the situation regarding the recommendation quota at the time. Furthermore, Comrade Akari Sato's academic performance and abilities were first-rate during her advanced studies in Tokyo. If her abilities were insufficient, then this new batch of doctors at the hospital would all be unqualified. The old woman still wanted to say something, but Minato Kobayashi spoke first. Comrade Sato is a specially trained talent by the state, and an investigation was conducted beforehand. Madam, are you questioning the state's decision? Moreover, Comrade Sato is my wife, a military dependent. Spreading such rumors will also lead to punishment. Director, this matter involves many parties. We should let the public security comrades investigate and handle it. People at this time had a natural respect for soldiers and also feared public security. As soon as she heard that the public security would be called, the old woman immediately panicked. No. Don't call the public security, Commander, Director. These words were not mine. I just heard a few things from others, and my mouth was a bit loose. I wasn't trying to slander Dr. Sato. The old woman was just short of grabbing Akari Sato's hand. Akari Sato avoided her movement, frowned slightly, and looked at Minato Kobayashi, who was standing beside her. It seems we should still hand this over to the public security comrades and let them clear my name. Hearing Akari Sato say the same, the old woman frantically tried to distance herself. I remember now. These words were all told to us by Yui Sato. She said she was Dr. Sato's older sister. That's why we believed those words. Akari Sato was not surprised to hear such words from childhood. The one who always wanted to ruin her was her older sister. They were blood relatives, connected even through broken bones, yet Yui Sato always wished she were dead. Her heart still felt a bit heavy. She pursed her lips, looked up. Director, I'll trouble you to handle this matter. I have something else to do, so I'll return to my consulting room first. The director nodded, and Akari Sato directly turned and left the office. The onlookers outside, who had been watching the drama, all made way for her. Minato Kobayashi, however, had no intention of leaving. Yui Sato is indeed Comrade Sato's cousin, but what she says cannot be trusted at all. Comrade Sato lost both parents when she was young. Her uncle's family took over her parents' jobs and brought her back to raise her, but they didn't treat her as their own child. Instead, they were often harsh towards her. Under the influence of her own parents, Yui Sato was also not good to Comrade Sato. They made Comrade Sato drop out of elementary school, do housework at home, and didn't even feed her enough. Later, Comrade Sato found someone to teach her medicine on her own, earned a university spot with her own abilities, and became the best surgeon in Amagasaki County. Yui Sato has always been jealous of her, spreading bad rumors everywhere, but Comrade Sato, remembering they were family, never blamed her. He paused, a dark glint in his eyes. Even Yui Sato's current man was originally engaged to Comrade Sato. Yui Sato snatched him away. All of this, the neighbors of the Sato family know. If the director doesn't believe it, I can have someone bring witnesses. At this point, he closed his mouth. What he said was all fact, and also words he would never have uttered before, but since Yui Sato dared to do this, she had to bear the consequences. Only by telling everyone this could he ensure that Yui Sato would never be able to slander Akari Sato again. Even stealing her sister's man, what kind of person is that? I also heard Yui Sato showing off to others before, saying her man was that rich Haruto Tanaka. Who wouldn't want such a rich man? I also saw her using her man's wealth to curse at young nurses for being clumsy. A few years ago, she would have been reported for acting like a capitalist. Spreading rumors about others because you have no ability yourself. We should stay far away from such people, lest we get tainted. Listening to the people's discussions outside, Minato Kobayashi's brows relaxed a little. He looked at the old woman, whose face was now unpleasant. Do you have anything else to say? The old woman, hearing him say he could call in witnesses, shook her head like a rattle drum. No more. It was my loose mouth. I shouldn't have slandered Dr. Sato. He nodded, then looked at the director. Director, the truth of the matter has now come to light. I hope the hospital can clear Comrade Sato's name, so she won't be misunderstood by uninformed people again. The director nodded, and the old woman also quickly stated that she would explain the matter to others, fearing he would say something about calling the public security again. Minato Kobayashi finally left the office, satisfied. Akari Sato was nowhere in sight outside. He walked directly towards her consulting room, but he didn't see Akari Sato there. He frowned, searched around, but still couldn't find her. Finally, he had no choice but to return to his ward. Jinming, go to the police station for me. Ren Suzuki was leaning by the window reading a book. He looked up, somewhat surprised, at the words, but remembering the rumors in the hospital, he understood Minato Kobayashi's meaning. He hesitated, unsure. Do you really want to do this? That's Yui Soto. Minato Kobayashi's eyes darkened. Ren Suzuki knew he was angry and immediately stood up. I'll go now. Hey, I just got back from Amagasaki County, and you won't even let me rest a bit longer. He grumbled as he left the ward. Minato Kobayashi took Ren Suzuki's place by the window. The sunlight streamed in, and he instinctively squinted. This was Tokyo's largest hospital, with many years of history and numerous buildings now downstairs. A small area was designated for planting flowers and greenery. Some hospitalized patients who found their rooms stuffy would go there for a walk. Minato Kobayashi looked down, and after a while, he saw the familiar figure under a tree. He went downstairs without a second thought. Akari Sato was sitting on a stone bench under the tree, lost in thought, looking at the flowers before her. The shade of the tree reached just a bit beyond her toes, making her seem to be sitting in shadow, looking with longing eyes at the sunlit area. Minato Kobayashi felt as if something had bitten his heart. A sour feeling instantly filled his chest. He pursed his lips and walked towards her. May I sit here? Akari Sato snapped back to reality, looked up at him, then slowly nodded. Minato Kobayashi, who had been prepared for rejection, was startled, then couldn't help but smiled. He sat beside her and heard her softly say, "Thank you for today's matter." Minato Kobayashi's expression stiffened. He turned his head to look at her. Akari, given our relationship, there's no need to say thank you. Akari Sato really wanted to ask what their relationship was, but the words caught in her throat. If it had been before today, she would have bristled with thorns, telling Minato Kobayashi of her rejection of him. But he had just helped her today, she couldn't do that. Seeing her silence, Minato Kobayashi's heart sank slightly. He silently rubbed his fingers, making a promise. In the future, I will protect you. No one will bully you again. Akari Sato looked at the blossoming flower a few steps away. There's no need, Minato Kobayashi. I don't believe what you told me. Even if I did, I don't want to go back. My life now is very good, and I like it very much. Minato Kobayashi's hand clenched little by little. The effort pulled at the scabbed wounds on his body, making his face turn pale from the pain, but he didn't let go. Only by doing so could the pain in his heart lessen a bit. After a long time, he gently exhaled, "It's all right. I'll make up for my mistakes. Whether you accept it or not is fine. From now on, I will only stand by your side and only believe in you." Hearing this, Akari Sato merely gave a gentle smile. Minato Kobayashi, no matter what you do, the words you said and the things you did in the past won't disappear because of it. In the past, you also believed that I replaced Yui Soto at university, didn't you? And at a critical moment, the one you instinctively saved was also Yui Soto. These things truly happened and have left their mark on my heart. No matter what you do, these traces cannot be erased. Minato Kobayashi's eyes gradually darkened. He opened his mouth, finding his throat suddenly terribly dry. He swallowed with difficulty before finding his voice. It's okay if you don't forgive me, even as friends? Akari Sato didn't reply, and the two of them sat like that for a very long time. She didn't need to be on night duty today, so Akari Sato went home early. When she came to the hospital the next morning, all those unpleasant glances were gone. Although she didn't care what others thought of her, her heart felt much lighter now. Until noon, after seeing the last patient of the morning, she went to the restroom first. She then heard two young nurses chatting. I have relatives who live in that area, so it must be true. Yui Soto was taken away by public security comrades yesterday and hasn't returned today. Dr. Soto is also pitiful to have such a sister. Isn't that what she deserves? Relying on her family's wealth to casually spread rumors about others. Before, just because Xiao Chen responded a bit slowly to her, she slapped Xiao Chen directly. You'd better stop talking. Boss Yi is so rich, he definitely won't let her truly go to jail. If she heard what you said, who knows what kind of scene she'd make. The two looked at each other and tacitly changed the subject. Akari Sato stood in their blind spot, curling her lips mockingly. She remembered these two nurses. They had also spread rumors about her before. Unexpectedly, now they had turned their words around and were pitying her. However, she thought they were right. Haruto Tanaka would definitely not let Yui Soto be truly locked up by the public security. Yui Soto was not a kind person in the past, and now with Haruto Tanaka backing her, who knew how arrogant she would be? Just as she thought, in the afternoon, Yui Soto burst into Akari Sato's consulting room, and several security guards couldn't stop her. Mainly, they didn't dare to physically stop her. Yui Soto was pregnant. If something happened and they were blamed, or if she falsely accused them of harassment, they wouldn't be able to clear their names even with 1,000 mouths. Akari Sato also understood their difficulties and said to them, "You've worked hard. You can go back first. I'll have a few words with her." The security guards looked at each other, nodded tacitly, and after leaving the consulting room, headed towards the special ward in the consulting room. Yui Soto closed the door. Akari Sato glanced at her desk, gripped a fountain pen in her hand, twisted off the cap, and prepared to use it for self-defense. Yui Soto stood by the door with her arms crossed, her eyes filled with immense contempt. "Akari Sato, you're the one who called the public security to arrest me, aren't you?" She chuckled triumphantly. "But, look, I'm still standing here in front of you, completely unharmed. You're truly foolish, not fighting for a potential stock like Haruto Tanaka. Do you really think you can live a good life on your own abilities? I've heard that you've had a very difficult time these past 2 years." As if remembering something, she covered her mouth, feigning surprise. "Oh dear, I almost forgot. What good would fighting for him do you? Haruto Tanaka likes me. You don't know yet, do you? In my previous life, after you died of illness, he immediately married me. In 2 lifetimes, Haruto Tanaka never liked you. Neither did Minato Kobayashi." Akari Sato didn't expect Yui Soto to come specifically to say these things. She loosened her grip on the fountain pen, raised her eyes faintly to look at Yui Soto. "Are you done talking? If so, please leave. I have patience." That look again. Yui Soto felt a ball of fire in her stomach, burning so much that her eyes were turning red. What she hated most was seeing that look in Akari Soto's eyes. Akari Sato was an orphan. Why did she always look at her with such cold indifference, even with a hint of pity? She was clearly living a much better life than Akari Sato. How dare Akari Sato pity her? Yui Soto couldn't help but step forward and push Akari Sato. "How dare you pity me? I have money and status now. So many people envy my life. Why do you look at me like that?" Akari Sato stepped back 2 paces, frowning as she looked at her. "I don't know what you're talking about." She had never pitied Yui Soto. On the contrary, she pitied herself more. She pitied herself for not receiving her parents' love, and she pitied herself for having to work harder than others to get what she wanted. As for Yui Soto, in the past, she had envied her. She envied how her uncle's family always doted on Yui Soto, buying her all sorts of good things. She envied that Yui Soto could go to school even if her grades weren't good. She also envied Yui Soto being loved by many people, but that was just in the past. Now, she wouldn't envy such ethereal things anymore. She had, through her own efforts, gained the ability to live her own good life. She no longer needed to beg anything from others. Looking at the indifference in Akari Soto's eyes, Yui Soto tried to reach out again, but then heard a loud shout from behind her. "Yui Soto!" Minato Kobayashi strode over and directly pulled Yui Soto away, his expression terribly grim. "What are you doing?" The arrogant expression on Yui Soto's face instantly changed. She touched her belly, looking as if she were about to cry. "Minato," her affected tone made it seem as if she had suffered some immense grievance. Akari Sato lowered her gaze, having no desire to deal with Yui Soto. She replaced the cap on the fountain pen in her hand. The struggle with Yui Soto had left ink marks on her fingers. She felt a bit annoyed. A few seconds later, Minato Kobayashi would probably start lecturing her again. Siding with Yui Soto, Akari Sato placed the fountain pen back on the desk. Just as she was thinking this, Minato Kobayashi's voice rang out above her head. "Akari, are you all right?" Akari Sato's movements paused, and she suddenly felt a slight soreness at the bridge of her nose. So, this was what it felt like to be cared for at such a moment. She felt it for a moment, then suppressed the feeling, her voice still cold. "I'm fine." Yui Soto, seeing Minato Kobayashi completely ignore her, gnashed her teeth in resentment and said again, "Minato, I think I've disturbed the fetus." She looked at Minato Kobayashi with watery eyes. Minato Kobayashi didn't even look at her, his gaze falling on the doorway of the consulting room behind her. "At this moment, my cousin's weakness shouldn't be directed at me." Akari Sato looked to where his gaze landed and saw Haruto Tanaka standing at the consulting room door, his expression cold. Yui Sato felt a sudden chill down the back of her neck. She seemed to anticipate something, turning her head like a rusty machine to look behind her. Upon seeing Haruto Tanaka, her face changed dramatically. Haruto, when did you arrive? She didn't dare to think what Haruto Tanaka had heard or what he would think of her. Haruto Tanaka looked at her coldly. Just arrived. Yui Sato's expression softened slightly. She put on a smile and stepped forward, wanting to link arms with Haruto Tanaka. Haruto. But Haruto Tanaka directly stepped aside, dodging her, causing her words to halt abruptly. Haruto Tanaka glanced at Akari Sato with a complex expression, but it was just a glance before he retracted his gaze. Haruto Tanaka's expression softened slightly. Didn't you disturb the fetus? Go get it checked. Although his words still sounded caring, Yui Sato just felt that something was different. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she sensed that the look in Haruto Tanaka's eyes when he looked at her no longer held the same feeling as before. This made her heart begin to uncontrollably panic that if Haruto Tanaka no longer loved her, wouldn't her good life now be gone? She frowned slightly, as if the pain was unbearable. Haruto, I can't walk. Please help me go. Haruto Tanaka's eyes darkened slightly, but he still reached out and grabbed her arm. The two then disappeared from the consulting room doorway. Some curious onlookers, seeing this, also immediately left in the consulting room. Only Akari Sato and Minato Kobayashi remained. Akari Sato had no intention of speaking. Minato Kobayashi lowered his head, apologetically reaching up to straighten her collar. I'm sorry, I came late. She didn't do anything to you, did she? Akari Sato shook her head, thinking for a moment. She felt that Haruto Tanaka's gaze just now had been a bit strange, so she asked, did you call Haruto Tanaka? Minato Kobayashi also thought of Haruto Tanaka's gaze just now, and an inexplicable sense of anger rose within him. No, the security guard called me. He must have come with Yui Sato. He paused, then hesitated. Why did you suddenly ask about him? He was somewhat afraid that Akari Sato no longer liked him because her feelings for Haruto Tanaka had rekindled. After all, in his opinion, when Akari Sato and Haruto Tanaka had their engagement, there should have been some emotional foundation there. Just asking. Akari Sato sat back down. I have more patience. If there's nothing else, please leave first. Minato Kobayashi opened his mouth, then finally nodded and left. Akari Sato didn't dwell on this interlude. Time quickly moved to evening. She tidied up her consulting room, greeted the on-duty doctor and nurses, and then left the hospital. But she didn't expect to see an unexpected person at the hospital entrance. Haruto Tanaka. He was wearing a slim-fitting suit from Hong Kong, his brows filled with a heroic spirit, but Akari Sato merely glanced at him and then lifted her leg to leave. However, Haruto Tanaka stopped her. I'll give you a ride. Akari Sato took a step back, looking at him. She had never imagined that she and Haruto Tanaka would have such an encounter, but she didn't want to have any further contact with him, so she shook her head. No need. I can go home by myself. Besides, you're my brother-in-law, we should maintain a certain distance. Haruto Tanaka frowned. But I have something I want to tell you. Then say it here, Akari Sato insisted. Haruto Tanaka's frown deepened. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Akari Sato looked at him strangely. My time is limited. If you haven't decided what to say yet, then I'll leave first. With that, she really lifted her leg to walk away. For the past 2 years, Haruto Tanaka hadn't been disregarded like this in a long time, but he wasn't angry. After all, he was the one who broke off their engagement first, so it was normal for Akari Sato to be upset. He reached out and blocked her. I want to divorce Yui Sato. What? Akari Sato instinctively blurted out. Didn't Haruto Tanaka like Yui Sato very much? Why would the two of them suddenly want a divorce? Haruto Tanaka sighed softly. So, shall we find a place to talk, alright? Akari Sato lowered her head and thought for a moment, finally nodding. However, she rejected the few places Haruto Tanaka suggested and instead took him to a small alley near the hospital. There were a few small vendors in the alley. Akari Sato sat down at a wonton stall. Madam, 1 bowl of wontons. Coming right up. If you have anything to say it here. There's no one here now, and no one will hear what you're saying, Akari Sato said. She didn't know what Haruto Tanaka wanted from her. Whether he simply wanted to talk, or if he had some ulterior motive, choosing this familiar place was a way to give herself a fallback. Haruto Tanaka had clearly enjoyed 2 years of good living. Now, sitting at this small stall, which was highly unsuitable for his status, his eyebrows showed a hint of displeasure, but Akari Sato pretended not to notice. Haruto Tanaka straightened his sleeves, lowering his gaze to conceal the dark glint in his eyes. Yui Sato doesn't love me at all. Hearing this, Akari Sato looked at him in surprise. Why do you say that? Then Haruto Tanaka suddenly lifted his eyelids, his eyes filled with a complex hatred. She likes Minato Kobayashi. Wontons are here. The stall owner's voice made Haruto Tanaka turn his head, his expression returning to normal. After the stall owner placed a bowl of wontons down and left, he turned his head back again. Akari Sato didn't seem to care what he had said, instead focusing on eating her wontons. Haruto Tanaka frowned. What I'm saying is true. Akari Sato didn't even raise her head. How do you know? After your accident, Minato Kobayashi was ill for a long time. During that period, my business improved significantly. I was very busy then and often didn't go home, but Yui Sato didn't seem to care if I spent time with her, which made me a bit strange. Later, Kankang told me that she often went out alone. I didn't know what she was doing, and I was also worried that she might be deceived by others, but when I asked her, she only said she was going out with some friends. It was later, one time, after I caught a bit of a cold at night and had a cough, I went to the health center. It was there that I met Yui Sato, who had told me she was going out to meet friends. I originally thought it might be that her friend was sick, but I felt she had been very strange during that period, so I didn't call out to her. Only by following her did I realize that she always went to see Minato Kobayashi whenever she had time. A hint of self-mockery spilled from Haruto Tanaka's eyes. I personally heard her say that Minato Kobayashi still had feelings for her, and I personally heard her say she was worried about Minato Kobayashi's health. At that time, I loved her so much that I simply didn't believe she would say such things, and I didn't dare to question anything in front of her. However, from then on, every time she went out, I would follow her. She always went to see Minato Kobayashi. Even when Minato Kobayashi clearly showed great impatience, she still insisted on getting closer to him. My feelings for her were exhausted little by little in this way. Many times I wanted to ask her, since she couldn't let go of Minato Kobayashi, why did she choose to marry me back then? If I had known this, I should have been more resolute and chosen you. Akari Sato finally looked up, meeting Haruto Tanaka's eyes. She frowned. What exactly do you want to say? Haruto Tanaka didn't expect such a reaction from her and was stunned for a moment. He had thought that by expressing his regret for not marrying her in the past, she would also feel it was a pity. After all, if it had been her who married him back then, wouldn't her life now be free from worries about food and clothing? Akari Sato finished her last wonton, wiped her mouth. So, brother-in-law, you just want to tell me that you don't like Yui Sato anymore? Haruto Tanaka didn't speak, but his expression clearly acquiesced. Akari Sato asked, your divorce has nothing to do with me. I just want to ask, what about Kankang Yi, and what about the child in Yui Sato's belly now? Regardless of what happens between you and Yui Sato, the child is innocent. Even if you divorce, don't abandon your responsibility as a father. Haruto Tanaka's eyes flickered, and then he suddenly smiled. I'm sorry. I broke off our engagement back then. It's only now that I'm telling you this. Akari Sato pulled out money and placed it on the table, standing up. No need. I don't understand your intention in telling me all this today, but what I want to say is that I no longer care about what happened in the past. In the future, I don't want any entanglement with you and Yui Sato. She paused, then, remembering Yui Sato causing a scene in her consulting room that afternoon, she added, if you truly feel guilty towards me, then please keep an eye on Yui Sato. I don't want her to disturb my life anymore. With that, she left directly. From that night on, Akari Sato indeed did not see Haruto Tanaka again, except when necessary. Even Yui Sato was only occasionally seen in the hospital. Perhaps Haruto Tanaka had said something to Yui Sato. Every time they met, Yui Sato no longer dared to come forward and say anything. It was often just a fleeting glance, but even so, Akari Sato could feel Yui Sato's gaze on her, dark and cold, filled with hatred. More than a month later, the weather began to turn cold. Minato Kobayashi's injuries had almost healed. He was discharged from the hospital, but whenever he had free time, he would go to the hospital. Akari Sato found this incredibly annoying. However, Minato Kobayashi was now a brigade commander, not to mention her nominal husband, so even the hospital authorities couldn't say anything. This day, Akari Sato left work as usual. Seeing the jeep parked at the hospital entrance, she pretended not to see it and left directly. As usual, Minato Kobayashi knew she wouldn't pay attention to him, so he drove not far behind her. He didn't leave until he saw her return home. When Akari Sato returned home, Eiko was not yet asleep. To be precise, she was specifically waiting for her. Eiko hugged her pillow and quietly looked at her. "Mama, who is that uncle who drove you home?" Akari Sato knew that Eiko had seen Minato Kobayashi's car, but she didn't know how to explain her relationship with Minato Kobayashi. "He didn't drive me, he just happened to be going the same way." Eiko then said, "Mama, I went to the hospital to find you today." She opened her large, grape-like eyes. "I heard people at the hospital say that man is your husband. Are you two having a disagreement now?" "I went to Mama's consulting room. Mima had a surgery at the time, and only the uncle was in the consulting room. The uncle also told me that you are his wife." Eiko walked over and took Akari Sato's hand, uneasiness in her eyes. "An auntie told me that if Mama goes home, she won't want Eiko anymore." Akari Sato's heart ached. She squatted down and hugged the skinny little girl in front of her. How could Mama not want Eiko? When the accident happened, Eiko was only 6 years old, and now she was just 8, but she was very sensible, helping with household chores and studying diligently, but she was just too sensible. She clearly knew that Akari Sato was not her biological mother, and there were always many rumors swirling around. She was afraid of becoming a child without a mother again. Akari Sato clearly knew what she was thinking. After all, many years ago, she herself had been in a similar situation. She smiled and patted Eiko's head. "What are you thinking with that little head of yours again? I am Eiko's mother now. How could a mother not want her own child?" Eiko blinked and then asked, "Will Mama go back to Uncle's house?" The uncle she referred to was Minato Kobayashi. Akari Sato's smile faded. Why would Eiko ask that? Eiko returned to her own bed and sat down. "Mama, I understand everything. You and Uncle are husband and wife. You definitely have to live together. The uncles and aunties in the hospital also said that once your anger subsides, you'll go home." Actually, she had heard some things she didn't like very much at the time. Those people said, "This Akari Sato is just too fussy. What's there between a couple that can't be talked about clearly? She's even talking about divorce. Commander Shin has been coaxing her so much. When Commander Shin doesn't want to bother with her anymore, she'll know to cry." Although some of the words she didn't quite understand, she could feel their malice. She grew up in the countryside. At that time, her parents hadn't had their accident yet. Sometimes, when her parents argued, her mother would take her back to her grandmother's house, and she would hear others say that her mother had a bad temper and didn't know how to manage a household, always running back to her mother's family when they argued, leaving no face for her own man. She felt that Akari Sato and Minato Kobayashi were in a similar situation now. If Akari Sato didn't go home, others would scold her. Eiko's small hand tugged at Akari Sato's. "Mama isn't going home because she's afraid Uncle won't like me." She only knew that her previous father didn't like her either, but Uncle was a soldier, so he definitely wouldn't be like her previous father. She remembered what Minato Kobayashi had said to her in Akari Sato's consulting room. "Uncle said today that I can call him Papa, but Mama, I'll listen to you. Whatever you tell me to call him, I'll call him." Akari Sato simply sat down on Eiko's small bed as well. "Eiko, do you miss having a father?" Akari Sato wasn't sure if Eiko brought this up because of something Minato Kobayashi said, or because she lacked a father figure. Eiko shook her head, remembering the father who only ever yelled at her. Then, "Eiko, do you wish you had a father?" Eiko continued to shake her head. "Having Mama is enough for me. If I absolutely must have a father, then Mama should choose a good father. If it were a soldier like Minato Kobayashi, she could barely accept it." She picked at her fingers. "But, Mama, without a father, others will bully us." In these 2 years, because they were just a woman and a child, they had endured quite a bit of hardship. So, when Minato Kobayashi, dressed in military uniform, said she could call him Papa and that he would be able to protect her and Mama from then on, it would be a lie to say her heart wasn't moved. But she knew that for such matters, she had to listen to Mama. Therefore, she didn't agree at the time, but waited for Akari Sato to return before mentioning it. Akari Sato patted Eiko's head. Eiko, we can protect ourselves too. The most difficult times had passed. From now on, their lives would only get better. Perhaps this was a good opportunity to have a proper talk with Eiko. She couldn't let Eiko become a second herself, someone who gets hurt for a little bit of love. The light in the room remained on until almost midnight before it was turned off. Akari Sato, who had a long talk with Eiko until the middle of the night, didn't sleep well and was listless when she arrived at the hospital the next day close to noon. The hospital's exterior became noisy. This situation had occurred many times. It meant an emergency patient had been brought in. Akari Sato immediately left her consulting room and headed towards the emergency room. She saw that the emergency room light was already on, and waiting outside was none other than Haruto Tanaka. She walked over, glanced at the blood on Haruto Tanaka's clothes. What happened? Hearing her voice, Haruto Tanaka's gaze slowly focused, and he looked up, his lips moved, and the sound he made trembled slightly. I didn't mean to. Akari Sato glanced at the emergency room, thinking that the person inside was most likely Yui Sato. Yui Sato was already several months pregnant. Seeing the blood on Haruto Tanaka, she knew how terrifying the bleeding must be. She didn't know if they could save her. After hesitating for a moment, Akari Sato still sat down. Despite her terrible relationship with Yui Sato, this was a matter of life and death, so she decided to wait here. Haruto Tanaka seemed to have suddenly found an outlet for his emotions, attempting to distract himself by talking. These days, I've had people watching her. Besides coming to the hospital for checkups, I haven't let her go out. Originally, I had already agreed with her that once the child was born, we would divorce. I would send her back to Amagasaki and give her enough money for the rest of her life. But last night, I discovered she was planning how to kill me. I argued with her, and I said I would hand her over to the public security. She ran outside and ended up falling down the stairs. Although our marriage has been in name only for many years, we've been husband and wife for so long. I never wanted her to die. Listening to his words, Akari Sato gradually pieced together the whole story. Yui Sato was inherently self-serving. In fact, after her rebirth, if she had only managed to help Minato Kobayashi survive his death node, given how well Minato Kobayashi had treated her in her previous life, she would have lived a good life for the rest of her days, but she didn't. Her choice was to kick Minato Kobayashi aside and instead choose Haruto Tanaka, who would become a wealthy man. In the future, perhaps her feelings for Minato Kobayashi were stronger than for Haruto Tanaka. Knowing that Minato Kobayashi would no longer die, she was unwilling to accept that Minato Kobayashi had no feelings for her anymore. But it was precisely because of this that if she had been a bit more sensible, Haruto Tanaka would not have given up on her and wanted to divorce her. Even after divorcing, even if Haruto Tanaka promised to give her a large sum of money, she wouldn't be satisfied. After all, if Haruto Tanaka died, all that money would belong to Yui Sato, his wife, and she wouldn't be forced back to Amagasaki County. However, Akari Sato couldn't be sure if Yui Sato's fall down the stairs was truly an accident. She lowered her eyes, offering no opinion. The emergency room light didn't go out until dusk. Yui Sato suffered a massive hemorrhage and couldn't be saved. Hearing this news, Akari Sato instinctively looked at Haruto Tanaka, but she could only see him taking a few steps back in disbelief, yet a fleeting sense of relief flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, Akari Sato felt a chill run down her spine for the deceased Yui Sato. She also felt a sense of sorrow for a fellow creature's demise. In her previous life, when she died of illness, Haruto Tanaka must have felt relieved too, right? After all, he never liked her. With her dead, he wouldn't have to share his property, and it wouldn't affect him marrying someone else later. She glanced again at Haruto Tanaka, who was feigning great sorrow over Yui Sato's death, and quietly turned to leave. Back in the consulting room, Minato Kobayashi was sitting inside. Akari Sato took off her white coat and put on her own jacket. Yui Sato is dead. Do you know? Minato Kobayashi showed no reaction. When I came over just now, I heard about it. Akari Sato pursed her lips. So, what are your thoughts? He was silent for a moment, then sighed. It's impossible to say I have no thoughts at all. After all, it was a life. Even though I really dislike her now, I still feel a bit of pity for her death. But I can't change these things, so there's no need to think too much about them. He was a person who had been on the battlefield and had witnessed the deaths of comrades with his own eyes, so life, to him, was held in great reverence. He clearly didn't want to discuss the topic further, so he said, I'll take you back. This time, Akari Sato didn't refuse. The jeep drove along the road, not very fast. There was silence throughout the journey. Even when the car stopped downstairs, Akari Sato showed no intention of getting out. She turned to look at Minato Kobayashi. Let's talk more. Eiko said she's seen you. Minato Kobayashi was silent, then nodded. Akari Sato looked straight ahead. A street lamp on the roadside was broken. That area was pitch black. She clenched her fingers, unsure how to begin speaking. Time passed in their silence. After an unknown period, Minato Kobayashi took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled. So, you want to have a complete showdown with me today, don't you? Since you know I've seen Eiko, you should know what I said, right? I don't mind you having Eiko. In fact, I can fill the empty position of a father. Akari, let's get back together. You said you yearned for love, and now I can give it to you. Come back, okay? Akari Sato's eyelids fluttered. Immediately after, a piece of paper was handed over. She glanced at it and saw the contents on the paper. This was the paper she had left on the bedside table when she left that year to tea. This time, apart from a few creases, the paper only showed slight yellowing. It seemed Minato Kobayashi had preserved this paper very well. She turned her head and met his eager gaze. It was so fervent, as if it could melt the heavy snow of winter. Akari Sato looked directly at him, not avoiding his gaze. After all, he was someone she had once loved. Seeing that look in his eyes, her heart inevitably skipped a beat, but that was all. She withdrew her gaze, looking back at the darkness ahead. It's not possible anymore. After saying that, she clearly felt that fervent gaze on her gradually recede. I still say the same thing. I have no feelings for you anymore, and I don't want to go back. Moreover, emotions aren't like you throwing a pebble to break the calm surface of water, and once the ripples are gone, you can pretend nothing happened. The pebble will remain at the bottom of the water. It won't disappear, just like a broken mirror. Even if it's mended, cracks will still exist. Minato Kobayashi, move forward. Minato Kobayashi stared blankly at her, feeling as if his heart had been thrown into an ice cellar, leaving only bone-chilling cold. He wanted to say something, but his lips felt glued shut. He couldn't open his mouth, nor could he make a sound. His body also seemed to be frozen, leaving him unable to move. After a long while, he regained control of his body and retracted the hand holding the paper. He carefully folded the paper and placed it back into his chest pocket. The paper felt like a furnace, carrying a warm heat against his chest, making his heart warm up again. He curled his lips bitterly. Really, not even a single chance. You should know that since I'm saying this, I've never thought about starting over with you. The reason I'm willing to tell you so much is also to make you understand and truly divorce me. Just as Ren Suzuki had said before, although she had left a divorce report when she left, Minato Kobayashi had not filed an application with the military, so their marriage relationship still existed. Perhaps she could choose to maintain this relationship, and perhaps she could receive some protection in the future. But she didn't want to. If it was to be broken, then let it be a clean break. The light in Minato Kobayashi's eyes completely dimmed. Give me some time, I'll think about it. Akari Sato glanced at him, nodded, okay. Then, she got out of the car. Minato Kobayashi watched her walk into the dark area and enter the building. At this moment, he even thought that if Akari Sato didn't agree to him, he could actually use some means to force her to stay by his side. But at that time, would the person he kept still be her? Pushing down his inappropriate thoughts, Minato Kobayashi restarted the car. Akari Sato had no idea of Minato Kobayashi's thoughts. After that night, he didn't appear for a long time, but Akari Sato knew that he was still paying attention to her. Outside the building where she lived, the broken street lamp that no one from the neighborhood office had bothered to fix after several attempts was repaired one night. She didn't wait for Minato Kobayashi. Instead, she waited for Haruto Tanaka. To be precise, Haruto Tanaka invited her to dinner at the Peace Hotel. Akari Sato originally didn't want to go, but the person who came to convey the message kept standing outside her consulting room, implying clearly that she should go. She had no choice but to follow the person to the restaurant. Haruto Tanaka had reserved a private room. In such a large private room, there were only the two of them. This made Akari Sato feel uneasy in her heart. Perhaps noticing her nervousness, Haruto Tanaka smiled. Let's talk while we eat. Don't worry, I have no ill intentions. Indeed, she didn't have anything he could want from her. Akari Sato relaxed slightly and picked up her chopsticks. I want to continue expanding my business. Next, I probably won't stay in Tokyo anymore. Akari Sato looked up at him. He was still smiling, unable to discern if it was genuine or feigned. Seeing that she didn't respond, he wasn't angry. I don't have any close relatives in Tokyo. After thinking it over, you're the only one I can truly speak a few sincere words with. I have people managing my businesses in Tokyo. In the future, if you need anything, you can also ask me for help. Akari Sato frowned. Why? She considered that her contact with Haruto Tanaka in this life had been almost non-existent, only a few words exchanged before their engagement. They had only met a few times through family arrangements. After he married Yui Sato, she had tried her best to avoid him. Could Akari Sato confide in Haruto Tanaka? Akari Sato answered with a firm no in her heart. Perhaps others could, but a man like Haruto Tanaka, who had fought his way through the business world, would not. Haruto Tanaka leaned back in his chair. Consider this. My compensation to you for the broken engagement back then. I know you might not need it, but I need to find inner peace. His words, though somewhat reasonable, showed that his guilt wasn't due to the annulment of the engagement. Some secrets, he chose to keep silent. Once, when Akari Sato suffered misfortune, he realized Yui Sato didn't love him. Then, he began to dream, fragmented yet unusually vivid. In his dreams, his wife was not Yui Sato, but Akari Sato. Initially, he thought it was just a fantasy arising from realizing Yui Sato didn't love him. However, every dream showed the same scenario without Yui Sato's interference. He married Akari Sato. Akari Sato was capable, and her hospital job offered good pay and extra subsidies. Even if her uncle's family took a portion, she could still save some money. At that time, his family was poor, and life was difficult. It was Akari Sato's support that gradually improved their lives, but he didn't love her. He agreed to the marriage only to get closer to Yui Sato. Because she handled most of the household affairs, his pride made him feel complex emotions toward her. Later, as policies loosened, he seized the opportunity to turn his life around, and things steadily improved. He also received news. Minato Kobayashi had died, and Yui Sato became a widow. He seemed to have another chance. However, Akari Sato occupied his side. He could only secretly support Yui Sato, unable to take further steps. His attitude gradually became cold. He had considered divorce, but Akari Sato's help during his most difficult time made him worry about how others would view his ingratitude if he divorced, which would affect his business. Ultimately, Akari Sato grew thin and weak due to his indifference, until she fell ill and passed away. He and Yui Sato ended up together. As for later events, he had only seen fragmented snippets in his dreams. It seemed he and Yui Sato lived happily. Initially, he didn't believe the reality of these dreams, but as time went on, he began to feel the emotions in the dreams were so real that he suspected these things might have actually happened. He couldn't confirm it, but the experiences in his dreams intensified his guilt towards Akari Sato. He had accepted too much of Akari Sato's kindness, but ruined her life. Such a reason, even if stated, would probably be hard to believe. Akari Sato gazed at Haruto Tanaka. His smile remained, but compared to his smile when they first met, there was a touch more sincerity now. Akari Sato pondered for a moment. Although she wasn't sure how much help Haruto Tanaka's guilt could provide, since he showed willingness, she didn't need to adamantly refuse. Perhaps there would be a time in the future when she would need his help. So, she agreed. All right. Hearing Akari Sato's reply, a huge weight was finally lifted from Haruto Tanaka's heart. Afterward, the two continued their meal, not mentioning the matter again. Akari Sato learned that Haruto Tanaka left Tokyo the next day. There were rumors that he went to Shanghai to develop his business, but she didn't know the specifics. In the blink of an eye, autumn deepened. Eiko was in a growth spurt, and last year's thick clothes were already too short. Fortunately, Akari Sato's efforts at the hospital were recognized, and her salary also increased, giving her extra money to buy new clothes for Eiko. She met Minato Kobayashi again when Akari Sato was leaving the department store after shopping. He was wearing a military uniform with a military overcoat, leaning casually against a jeep, showing none of a soldier's usual strictness. Seeing Akari Sato, he stepped forward, his tone calm. Eiko said you were here, so I came to wait. I've thought deeply about what you said before. He opened the passenger door. Get in the car, and we can talk in detail. Then, he helped Akari Sato place her shopping bags in the back seat and guided her into the passenger seat. Minato Kobayashi didn't start the car immediately. He held the steering wheel with both hands, his knuckles distinct, and his palms had calluses, which were quite striking. But Akari Sato wasn't in the mood to appreciate them. She asked directly, "You've agreed to divorce?" A hint of sadness flashed in Minato Kobayashi's eyes, but he chuckled softly. "If I didn't agree, you wouldn't leave." Akari Sato remained silent. He turned to her and asked, "After the divorce, can we still be friends?" He only hoped for a chance to see her a few more times. Akari Sato thought for a long time, then finally nodded. "Then, will you remarry?" Akari Sato glanced at him and replied, "No." After 2 lifetimes, she had seen through relationships and no longer pursued those illusory loves. She only hoped that she and Eiko could live well. That was enough. Minato Kobayashi breathed a sigh of relief, a smile appearing on his face. He pointed to a document bag on the center console. "I've already submitted the divorce application to the military. All the procedures are here. We can go directly to process it." Akari Sato nodded in agreement. An hour later, the divorce certificate was in Akari Sato's hand. The divorce certificate was smaller than the marriage certificate, just a simple piece of paper recording personal information, but it completely ended their marriage. Minato Kobayashi gazed at the divorce certificate in her hand, his heart filled with mixed emotions. Although he said he had come to terms with it and agreed to the divorce, he still felt pain inside. He pursed his lips. "I'll take you home." Akari Sato didn't decline. Finally, the jeep stopped downstairs at her residence. Akari Sato got out of the car, carrying her shopping bags. Minato Kobayashi watched her, trying to keep his smile natural. "If you need anything, feel free to ask me for help. You said that even after the divorce, we'd still be friends." Akari Sato nodded. "Okay." Then, she turned and left. Minato Kobayashi watched her retreating figure, feeling as if a dark cloud had enveloped his heart. The distance from where he parked to the building entrance she entered wasn't far. Soon, her figure disappeared from his sight. Minato Kobayashi felt that from then on, his world would no longer be illuminated by sunlight.